Welcome back to the Rodcast, Monday fun day edition of the Rodcast. Well, unless you're a Cowboys fan, that seems to be a common theme. We'll get into it. The Dallas Cowboys right now, a bit of a fuster cluck of a franchise. They fall to 3-5, and we have to start talking about potentially long-term options for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott dealing with a hamstring injury now. He's going to be out for the foreseeable future. We'll get into the doom and gloom of the Dallas Cowboys. We'll also talk other NFL news, notes, and nuggets and look around the NFL. The college football weekend, of course, we'll dive into that. The Aggies, they go full on Aggie at South Carolina. We'll talk about that and get into it a little bit later on. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. Next segment, we got to talk Texas football. Their upcoming opponent, the Florida Gators. Bad news for the Gators. It's going to be good news for the Longhorns. Their starting quarterback, DJ Lagway, or at least their second string quarterback, who was in for their injured starting quarterback, Graham Mertz. He's now hurt. He's got a hamstring injury. So they're going to be working with their third string quarterback against Texas, one of the best defenses in the country. That does not look good. We'll talk about the line there for that game that came out, and it is a big one. We'll get into that and break it down. Also start looking into that Texas-Florida matchup. We'll also get into the other usual favorites that you like on the show. We'll get into Rod's Rant. We got the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Who said that? Off the record coming up a little bit later on the show. What the facts, what the stats. We are loaded on a Monday Fun Day edition of the show. Before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Rod. It's good to be back on a Monday. It was a little bit less stress-filled weekend this week. I feel like no Longhorn football game. No Texans already played, so we didn't have to worry about being disappointed again.
About that. Yeah, you stressed out about that last week.
Yeah, stressed out about that on Thursday. I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you got that out the way. Yeah,
got that out of the way now. But so now and then get a little stressed tonight because we get to see the preview and the first look at Texas men's basketball. See how that new team looks.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
So we'll look into that tonight. But but it was pretty nice to not have to worry too much. And then somehow still watching the Cowboys, you're just like, oh, this is not fun to watch.
Yeah, we'll get into it because I know Cowboys fans right now. It's all doom and gloom. There doesn't look like there is going to be a happy ending to this season for the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll talk about that. We'll hear a little bit from Jerry Jones too. But the Dak Prescott news is very unfortunate. He had a hamstring injury that he suffered during a scramble, but then he was taken out of the game for Cooper Rush. And then, of course, now the Cowboys are looking, they're looking up at the rest of that division right now. I think they're second to last in the division. So they're not where the Giants are, not the division, but they're close, way too close. So we'll dive into it. We'll talk about it, of course. We'll also, as Patrick said, Patrick will give us a little bit of a preview of Texas basketball coming up. I can't wait to get to that. So we'll probably do that next hour. We'll get into that a little bit and talk some Texas basketball because they'll have their unveiling this week. Today. We'll get into that too coming up. Also, I want to get into Rod's Rant. We'll look around the NFL. There's also some coaching tirades and tantrums that we got to get to. Tom Herman made the news because he had a post-game fiasco with what the opposing coach. We kind of used to that with Tom Herman, so we'll get into that too coming up a little bit later on in the show. So we had lots to get to, so let's not waste a ton of time here.
Let's start let me introduce my coach.
Go ahead, do your thing.
He's the coach and proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is a new Rod, father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro. So let's get right to it. Let's give it up to Patrick and let him do his thing with the horn headlines. And we'll come back and we'll dive deep into the Dallas Cowboys and the fuster cluck that has become the Dallas Cowboys 2024 season. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the horn headlines.
All right, your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs beat the Timberwolves on Saturday night, 113-103. 5 Spurs scored in double digits, and Chris Paul racked up 13 assists. The Rockets came back from down 31 to force overtime against the Warriors, but still lost 127-121, with Tari Eason leading the way off the bench with 27 points. And the Mavericks took down the Magic 108-85, holding Orlando at 33% shooting for the game. Tonight, the Spurs face the Clippers, the Rockets take on the Knicks, and the Mavericks are up against the Pacers. In college football, 7 top 25 teams took a loss on Saturday, with most notably Ohio State beating Penn State 20-13, Louisville knocking off Clemson 33-21, and South Carolina giving Texas A&M their first loss in conference play with a 44-20 win. Texas moves up to number 5 in this week's poll. In the NFL, the Cowboys took a hard loss to the Falcons 27-21, with both Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb being injured in the game. Also around the league, the Lions got a 24-14 win over the Packers, and the Vikings got back on track with a 21-13 victory over the Joe Flacco-led Colts. Tonight, the Buccaneers head to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. And in college basketball, Texas begins their season tonight as the number 9 team in the country, taking on Ohio State in Las Vegas for the Hall of Fame series. 18 top 25 teams are in action tonight, kicking off the season with number 8 Baylor against number 6 Gonzaga headlining the night. And that is your Horn Headlines.
You, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. As he mentioned in those headlines, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb ended up getting injured in that game. Dak Prescott left the game early in the fourth quarter with that hamstring injury. Actually, he was dealing with a hand injury, they said on the broadcast early in the game, but he was fighting through that, playing through it, with the Cowboys trailing 27-13. Looks like they decided to take Dak out, and that the score made it. I mean, the score looked like it was made the game closer than it actually was. I mean, the game was not that close. I mean, the Falcons had control of that game from the jump. Dak did not have a great game. I believe Dak only had 2 passes that were past 10 yards. Yeah, he only attempted two passes beyond 10 air yards, I should say, and completed only one of them. So of his 133 passing yards, 67% of them came after the catch. That was his highest rate in a game since 2022, and his career low in air yards per attempt. He was at 3.7 air yards per attempt on his 24 overall attempts against Atlanta. So even when Dak was in there and relatively healthy, it wasn't making much of a difference. And that offense is, well, at least it was, even with Dak, predictable and a bit antiquated. The truth be told, it's just not a good offense. The Tex Coast offense, as they called it, it ain't working for the Dallas Cowboys right now, even with Dak in there. And I know now they're dealing with Dak not being there, and the Cowboys have other issues now. They're 3-5, and there's no trade now. Now the trade scenario is off the table. If you're the Cowboys, it would be irresponsible to make a trade now, because there's no trade that's going to fix all y'all's issues.
No. I mean, I think there still is a trade on the table, which is you can trade Deron Bland if you can get anything for him at this point.
Yeah,
but his injury may not be able to get much for him. But I think you can trade away players at this point.
Yeah, you can become a team that's basically So I'm talking about making a trade to save the season.
No, I'm with you. I think you can't make trades. I'm saying you can trade players away at this point.
You could start tanking. I mean, that's actually probably more of a realistic option than you trying to save the season with a trade.
Yeah,
save the season with a trade, that's a bad decision. If you want to tank and, like you said, go into a fire sale mode, that actually is not a bad option for the Cowboys. It would suck because you're only halfway through the season. So you got to deal with the rest of the season and deal with the hopelessness of that as a fan base. I was a Texans fan, so I remember the Texans going through it. It's terrible for the fan base to have to go through it, but it does help you build for a brighter future as a franchise. That may be where the Cowboys are right now. And if they are there, that's an ugly place to be. And I'm saying right now, I think they're 11th. If you look at draft order, they would basically be like 11th or 12th right now. Yeah. And they're close to being a top 10 pick. And there's a lot of football left to play and lose if you're the Cowboys. And I think that's kind of where they're at, especially if, you don't even have to try if Dak's out. If Dak's going to be out for a while, if Dak's going to be out for 3 weeks, you don't really have to tank. I mean, the organic process, it'll take care of itself.
Yeah. No,
especially we got Philly and H-Town with Houston next. So, yeah.
You'll
take care of itself.
You get a little, the silver lining, you finally get to see Trey Lance probably.
You should give, I'm with you. You should give Cooper Rush some time and then give Trey Lance a game or two. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. That's a responsible thing to do. See what you got in Trey Lance.
Yeah. So, it's not doom and gloom enough that you go, you have to tank the season. But at a certain point, depending on how bad that injury is to Dak, I think that if you say he's going to miss 3 to 4 weeks, and depending on what it is with his hand as well, if there's, depending on how bad his hand is hurt and his hamstring, And then CeeDee Lamb, who, I mean, was trying to tough it out there, but just kept hurting himself more and more. You could say he's probably a week or two to get him back if on your slightest. So, you're missing
3 and 6. So we're talking about 3 and 6 or 3 and 7. That's why I said the season's over, man.
Exactly. No, exactly. And that's the point is if you lose 2 of the next weeks, you're playing the Eagles, you have to play like you're going up against too good of teams right now that it's going to be a little rough to come back and fight back into that season, especially with the fact that the team hasn't played well enough when they were healthy.
Exactly.
To make you think, if they get healthy, they'll come back. With that, this is Rico Dowdle's best game.
The running game.
The running game is the best running game. And Rico Dowdle looked good in it.
The running game is good. The running game looked. I'm with you. That was a bright spot.
Which by the way, another piece of the thing when you look at it, and Zeke, they have to basically suspend a game. They don't suspend him because they didn't want to. Because Jerry Jones didn't want to take away a paycheck, I guess. So he doesn't suspend him. He just tells him not to show up.
Yeah, basically. And this is the report from. I got it from Jane Slater prior to the game. He was a healthy scratch. The first of his career, according to a number of sources. Elliott was a distraction, had become a distraction to the team this season. Aside from habitual tardiness, he's missed 3 team meetings, with Friday's meeting the final straw, according to her reports. Both parties decided it was best he didn't make the trip to Atlanta. Dalvin Cook and Rico Dowdle, they said, we're going to be expected to carry the load. This is prior to the game, of course. Then Clarence Hill also reported. Chill said, it is my understanding that Elliott was left behind for disciplinary reasons, and it's been building for a while. So the guy you brought in for vibes to be the hype man, because everybody in the locker room liked him, and the nostalgia that he brought from when you were really good. That guy that you brought in to be a culture guy and a locker room guy, that guy was not that at all. He was the exact opposite. Actually, he was more of a distraction, and he was a guy that was not an additive positive influence to the culture.
And you're like,
okay. So you screwed that up too.
and I'm not privy to what goes on in NFL locker rooms. I don't know, Rod, how many players are just late and don't show up to meetings.
Oh no, you early.
Doesn't feel like that's a thing that happens much.
It's
and they're like,
a thing that happens.
Man, the third time, like, dude, the first time you no call, no show at a job, any job, you're usually fired.
Yep.
So the fact that they were like, third time he no call, no showed us, we finally had to be like, hey man, we're not gonna dock your pay, but if you could just, I stay home because you seem to not want to be here anyway. That's what
is right.
Because if I'm on the team, I go, wait, so all I gotta do is get on Jerry's good side, and then I don't have to work anymore.
You just hire you.
He'll pay me
paychecks. Yeah,
3 years after my career should be over, I'll still be working here.
Yeah,
that blew my mind that they did not even suspend him. They just said when they're working out, they go, yeah, like the third time it happened. What?
Third time.
And he's always late. And then it's like, how? How do you not? It doesn't seem like it's that crazy. I get it's hard work. But come on. It just seems emblematic of the Cowboys' problems right now.
Oh yeah.
That it doesn't feel like anyone seems to have respect for anybody else on that coaching staff or the team to not show up on time, to not be able to go out there and perform at the level they need to. It just feels like maybe it's the fact that they all just know Mike McCarthy's gone, so no one cares.
I was going to say, I would say it's on Mike McCarthy, but ultimately Zeke feels accountable to Jerry.
Yes.
Not Mike McCarthy, which is part of the hierarchy issues of the Cowboys. You know what I mean? They don't really, the checks and balances they're supposed to have as a franchise. So you're right. That is pretty much symbolic. That's a microcosm of the issues happening with the Dallas Cowboys. They brought him in not because they thought he would be a true productive part of the running back by committee that they were forming. No, they brought him in mostly because good vibes, man. Hey, we like him. He makes everybody feel good when he's around, crack jokes. He's a great locker room guy, great culture guy. He's going to teach these youngsters how to be a professional. All right. And how to have a good attitude and all that kind of stuff. I remember there's some guys around like that. I mean, franchises do that. But he wasn't that.
Yeah.
That's what they told us. They sold us the bill of goods that he was that, and he wasn't even that behind the scenes. And as Patrick said, instead of holding him accountable or deciding, oh, you know what, we were wrong, let's cut this guy, let's move on. No, this is not good for us. Nope, they decided now we're going to keep him and we're going to keep giving him chances. And so what he was supposed to show the young guys around there as to be a professional and to be a good teammate and all those things, he showed them the opposite. So now you got a guy that's now been toxic and a distraction, and the young guys are like, oh, so yeah, Zeke, there are different rules for Zeke and different rules for different guys on the team. Oh, you're not accountable to Mike McCarthy or your teammates. You're accountable to Jerry. Just yeah, no doubt. It's a bad look. The optics of it are bad, but I think, like you said, more importantly, it's a microcosm of what is going on with the Cowboys. Yeah. All the bad going on. And Dak, I love the Dak moment because that was also fitting that they got Dak on camera mouthing that basically that they effing suck. That basically, they got him on camera mouthing that because they do. And you know what? He said, we effing suck. And they, like I said, it's clear as day. I don't know if he's been asked about it. I'll try to find some audio. I'm sure somebody is going viral, so he will be.
Yeah,
very soon.
Normally injured players don't have to do post-game pressers.
Yeah, so maybe he'll never. I don't know. But at one point, somebody will ask him about it. Yeah. But it reminds me, you remember the Arkansas game, Texas, and Sark on the sideline, and that moment where it's like a hot mic moment almost.
Yeah,
it's not a hot mic, but that hot mic moment where you get that just brutal honesty from somebody because they think, oh no, this is off the record. I said it is that moment where you can see Sark on the sideline saying, man, we're really, really bad. We're really effing bad, man. We're just bad. We're a bad football team.
No,
and that was the honesty from Dak. We effing suck, man. We're bad. It's a bad football team.
No, it goes. It's systemic, but it's also, Mike McCarthy is coaching for his job, but it doesn't feel like it feels like he's just like, how many paychecks can I get? Like, I don't want to get fired before the end.
He threw a tablet down. I
get it, but at the same part, when I say that, when you go, have some guts to go out there and tell Jerry, Zeke's not on the team anymore. He's late. Throw him off. I'm done. He's never going to play for me ever again. So fire me or fire him. But I'm done with this. I'm done with having this team not respect me because you don't respect me. So we're going to lose because no one listened to me anymore because they all know you're firing me. At the end of the season, I'm gone. And they're just trying to suck up to you because they want to keep a job. But no one cares about winning. And when I say no one cares, they care. They don't care enough to put in, showing up on time for everybody. I mean, that's that report of how much the report of how much it was happening blew my mind.
Yeah,
that like at any job you cannot pull off what he was doing, and then expect to be still compensated very well for doing a subpar job when you're there.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, it's just one of the issues the Cowboys are dealing with. I'm with you. That was one that we've been talking about for months now. I will say you have not been a fan of them bringing on Zeke. You never were a fan of it, even when it was rumor more so than report. But the fact that that position, guys, it was the worst in the NFL. Yeah, they performed well yesterday. I said it was the best rushing performance they've had all season long. But they needed to add actual dynamic talent. It was actually hurting the team, them bringing in Zeke, bringing in a player that was not a positive influence, number one, in the locker room, but was not additive production-wise to the worst running game in the NFL, which is literally what the Cowboys were going into that game. I'm not sure where they are now, but they're still one of the worst running games in the NFL, and it's because of their lack of talent in the backfield. And they decided Zeke was their best option. So, yeah, that's, like I said, that's just another issue the Cowboys are dealing with. I think the biggest issue is right now they're broken. The Cowboys are broken.
Yes.
Period. They are a broken franchise. Not saying that they can't fix it. I remember when the Texans were a broken franchise. You can fix it. All right. It can be fixed. The question is, are they talking about, a long-term fix? Or are we talking about trying to get this thing fixed right away? And I think Dak is part of the solution. CD's part. They got a lot of guys that's part of the solution. I think they'll move on from Mike McCarthy. I don't know when that is now because the season, if Dak is out for more than 2 weeks, your season is done. And it looks like he's going to be out for more than 2 weeks. It's just the reality of it. I don't
Yeah,
see.
I mean,
I don't
if
see them
there's
rushing the hamstring back with a
no, and
quarterback.
depending on what the hand injury is as well,
It doesn't make sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
to bring him
So
back to play under, not 100% when 100% wasn't getting you enough.
exactly. And so now you got to start looking for your next coach. I'm not saying I don't even think you should just fire Mike McCarthy right away. You could that's up to you, but you got to start looking who's the next coach. You got to start there. Like who's the next coach of the Cowboys? What kind of team do you want? You want
Yeah.
a defensive coach, offensive coach? Like who? Like you start looking at. I think that's your first step as the Cowboys organization, and you want that next. You want to have the next coach in place. By the time you make that top 10 draft pick, unless you're going to stick with Mike McCarthy, which I doubt they do. I don't.
No,
think
I can't imagine they stay with Mike McCarthy at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
because again, it doesn't seem like he's got that team on his side right now. They're not
No.
playing for him as hard as they were last season.
And that's not his fault, by the way. That's not all on Mike McCarthy.
No, it's not all on him. It's some on him.
It's some on him. Yes.
It's some on him, and it's some on Jerry, and it's some on the players that there's not the leadership in the locker room to get that team to play at a higher to get everybody amped up for it. I think that you saw defensively. You get rid of a very player friendly, very beloved head coach at defensive coordinator, and he is no longer there. Yeah, and that defense, the same as we're kind of seeing with the Jets right now, that without Robert Saleh, there's a piece of that team that doesn't feel the same, even though it's the same play caller. It doesn't feel the same on defense. I think you have some of that there's some of the players on defense who just don't like playing for Mike Zimmer the same way. Yeah, and so it's, even if you say Mike Zimmer's scheme or whatever else can still work, the effort may not be there on either side of the ball the way it needs to be. And while that's a huge problem when you just shelled out a bunch of money, and I get it, and I still think that was the right move to shell out that money. I get it sucks right now, but I also don't think rebuilding and trying to find a quarterback for the next 10 seasons is probably the best move either. So I still think those were the right moves. It's just, you get into these situations and it just snowballs. And it seems like it has snowballed like crazy and very fast of, we're going to make him a lame duck coach, and we have a new defensive coordinator. And now all of a sudden that team is just not, they know they're not good. And it doesn't seem to be anyone's fault because it's everybody else's fault.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. Yeah, it's nobody's fault because it's everybody else's fault.
And so everyone can just kind of take that weird non-accountability.
What's a lack of accountability? Yeah, it's just a lack of
if
accountability.
there's zero accountability in the locker room,
because it starts with Jerry, because Jerry won't take any accountability, so nobody else really has to either. So I'm with you, and it's for, like I said, I don't know. I know some people will say, hey, if you're gonna have a top 10 pick, depending on how high you're gonna draft, why don't you draft a quarterback, move on from Dak? I don't think that's the way to go, but I will admit the Cowboys should explore the option. I'm not saying they should do it. I think they should stick with Dak. Dak's the guy, because this is actually turned out to be a weak quarterback draft too. By the way, it's not a great quarterback draft. It was at one point, people thought it was, but have you seen the way Carson Beck is playing? Honestly, if Quinn was playing as bad as Carson Beck is now, Sark would have benched Quinn. Like, he would have benched him. I mean, he did bench him in the Georgia game, but he continues to play bad. Like, he's still playing bad. Like, he's still playing the way he was in the Texas game. At least Quinn had a bounce back.
Yeah.
Like, Carson Beck is still playing that badly.
Yes. That was, that watching that game was rough. Because you're watching it, and the whole time I'm sitting with my friend, and I'm just like, what? Seriously, Georgia? You can't show up again?
No.
Nope. One week. One week.
1 week, man. They flipped the switch. They flipped that switch on Texas. They flipped the switch. They were like, you know what,
They took a bye week. Turn the lights back off. Bye week.
They really did. I mean, they have not looked. That's the only time they've looked like the standard bearer of college football, which they are, is versus Texas. And honestly, Carson Beck still didn't look that good. He has looked, like I said, if Quinn looked that bad, they'd have benched him. My point is, Cowboys do you really want to look at the quarterback class and think about making a quarterback move with this group? Now, I know Jerry and Shadur Sanders. I get it. Shadur might be the top quarterback in his class. And some people believe, the conspiracy theorists, and you've brought it up, Patrick, several times, believe that with the Deion Sanders connection, and oh man, it could be a head coach, son, father, quarterback combo. That, oh man, if Jerry does it, it shouldn't surprise anybody if he does it, but that would be wild. And then what you do with Dak, if you're going to go that route, like, you got to trade Dak, trade the contract. Who wants that contract with Dak? I'm sure you can find somebody who'll take it, but still, that's another conversation you got to have all together that way. I don't know if that's the route, but I know some Cowboys fans want to they would love for the Cowboys at least to seriously consider it. I think the Cowboys, as a responsible organization, you should explore all options, and that should be one they look at. Should they do it?
Well,
no.
and let's be and like there's a fun part of this Deion Sanders, or not fun, but a interesting part of this Deion Sanders world that he has basically already come out and said Shedeur and Travis Hunter aren't going to teams I don't want them to go to.
Yep.
He basically said both those guys are not available to probably 10 to 15 teams in the league.
They're gonna pull a Manning. They might pull a Manning.
We don't want to play for your team. If your franchise, we feel you are not up to taking care of our players, you are not in the sweepstakes. So if that is how his thinking is, then he can basically come out and tell whoever has the number 1 pick, well, you know who has number 5 pick? Jerry. And that's where they're going. That's where one of them is going, at least. It's to Jerry.
Yeah. Because New England is bad. They already got a quarterback. Jacksonville's bad. Got a quarterback. New Orleans bad. Not sure if they, looking for a quarterback. They could be.
I mean, they have to be. Spencer Rattler, isn't the guy. I know they drafted him. But
Carolina.
They could be in a quarterback.
Just had a quarterback.
But Shedeur ain't going there.
No, that's what I'm saying. Looking at the guys that Deion may decide, nope. Talk to the hand. Cleveland. I mean, they do need a quarterback. They're paying, top dollar for a quarterback, but they still need a quarterback because he's not their quarterback.
No, he's not. But again, I can't imagine.
I don't know if they can afford.
I can't imagine you let your son go to a place where you
No,
feel
exactly. They're not. He's not going to go there. We know that.
We know
but they're going to need a quarterback. So it's another team he's going to be telling. Nope, sorry. So you talk about 3 teams right now potentially. He said, "Oh, what about the Vegas, right? The Las Vegas?
Maybe there. Tom Brady's there now.
Oh, that's good. That's a good connection. The Giants, hell, they're going to need a quarterback. That's crazy how many teams need quarterback. You would think teams are always drafting quarterback, and yet still teams need quarterbacks.
They don't develop them.
They don't.
We talked about that last week.
Back to that conversation. Yeah, you're right about that. So it's the Giants. So that's not. So Giants and Vegas Raiders and the Giants might be right now the 2 teams where Dion be like, hey, I'm cool. I'm cool with Travis Hunter going there or Shedeur Sanders going there. Then you got Miami, who they won't admit it, but they need a quarterback. Yeah. They do need a more stable solution at quarterback for the future. Then there's Tennessee.
I would say I don't know if there's anyone in this draft class that I would describe as stable.
No, not even Shedeur. Shedeur is he's far from stable.
I'm not counting anybody that was stable. So
I mean, think about all these teams that need quarterbacks. So this is crazy. Well, now looking at all the teams that are bad, they all need quarterbacks. Yeah. You see, pretty much because the Jets are going to need a quarterback. Tennessee's going to need another quarterback.
Yep.
Does Tennessee do they? I don't know if they love Will Levis. I don't know how he's playing, but then there's Dallas and it's just that Joe Burrow's killing it. Joe Burrow's having a really good season, by the way. Cincinnati's just terrible.
Yeah,
Cincinnati's weird. They're bad as a team, but actually Joe Burrow's having a decent season. But yeah, look at all those teams. They all need. Honestly, it's crazy. Indy's going to be in here, but Indy don't need a quarterback, but they need a quarterback. They're like in the same situation as like the Browns, who don't need a quarterback, but they need a quarterback. Yeah. The Panthers, who don't need a quarterback, but they need a quarterback. Then you got these teams kind of in purgatory where they don't need a quarterback, but they need a quarterback. And then the teams that really need a starting quarterback, and it's still like a third of the league. And because there's a lack of development, it ends up being basically a third of the league every other few years that need a quarterback.
No, and I mean you have coaches that have their schemes that are basically like, well, if I have this quarterback, this scheme works. Well, you don't have that quarterback. Well, we're about to have a lot of bad games now. So I'm trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and we're just going to keep doing it until this kid is destroyed mentally. So I'm trying to turn him into something he's not.
It's crazy.
And then you look over at Detroit, and they get Jared Goff, and they turn him into an MVP candidate.
Ben Johnson, is that the coach you're going to get?
I mean, that's who you'd love to get. I don't think he's going there. I mean, he turned down the Commanders basically because of ownership.
He did turn down the Commanders. If you're the Cowboys, you're going after Ben Johnson, or you want just an offensive?
I mean, I don't think Jerry would. I think Jerry's going to go after someone who's, in their 50s or 60s and older, and just somebody that he can sell as a name to go, look at what this guy did.
Belichick?
I think he'll
too much control.
Let's put it this way. I think Belichick will be in the discussion solely because it's headlines.
He'll be in discussion, but Belichick wants a lot of control.
No, I'll tell you. I'll give you a name that every Cowboys fan will hate me saying, but I'll say it's a better chance than a lot of other guys. Jason Garrett is a real chance to be the next head coach of the Cowboys.
Dude, no.
He's a real chance. It's Jerry Jones. It's a real chance.
Awful.
Just telling you.
It's like those dudes who married their ex-wives again. It's like you divorced them, like, and you divorced them, got married to somebody else, and then your third marriage is back to your original ex-wife, and it's like, no, I don't know if that's a solution. I don't know if that's the way to go for the guy. That would
I
be
know.
a
I think it's a
horrible
terrible
idea.
decision.
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh.
condoning it. You just see a little bit of smoke about
Mm.
Jason Garrett and their relationship and how he talks
Oh,
about when they had Jason Garrett and the things. I'm just saying there's a point where he goes, well, we tried it without him and it didn't work. And you're like, Jerry, there's 9,000 other coaches you could pick. Well, we tried it, but we tried without him and it didn't
Hey,
work.
how about this? What do you think he'd go? See, this is, yeah, no, with you. I don't know who it's going to be. I have no idea. Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
Because they're only so, if you're if you're a coach with a lot of respectability and a lot of clout, you don't go coach for Jerry Jones. Now that's his reputation
Yeah.
is that he wants too much power and you're not going to get any. And so, that was kind of the stigma after, Bill Parcells left him. It's like, no, you don't want, if you're a real ball coach, you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
You don't want to go there if you're a real ball coach because
Exactly.
they ain't about ball. You ain't want that. And so that's the thing, right? Can you get that coach? And if you're a young up and comer like a Ben Johnson, I don't know if you probably got, probably
no,
you do.
because I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that for Ben Johnson, except the fact that he turned down the Commanders to stay.
No, I'm with you.
And that would make you think, no, I want to go to the right place when I go.
To the right place.
And that would probably not be a place that really looks like they've got a lot of issues you got to clean up right now.
That's the question. So who is Jerry Jones? Does he go to college and go get a guy? I know I know Lincoln Riley was hot-ish at one time. He ain't right now.
No, he's not right now.
So if you wanted Lincoln, you can get him. If you wanted Lincoln, you can have him now on the cheap, man. You can have matter of fact, you might get him for an OC. You can be, honestly, right now, I would not doubt if you could pluck Lincoln as an OC. I think right now he would think about it in the league. Like, because he know he can go from OC to head coach in the league pretty easy. Right now, man, his days may be numbered at USC.
Yeah, I mean,
if he doesn't, I don't think they're going to fire him this year. I'm not saying that, but like in the next, if he doesn't start, if next year isn't a big year for him, I can see USC just looking around and going, man, this is not working. We thought it was going to work. It's not working. He can't figure it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, their thing is if you don't get us at least Heisman winners, this is a whole, like, at least you're getting Heisman winners in Oklahoma.
Where's the first round? What's our first round QBs?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's that?
We need Miller Moss to step it up now. No, I mean, I'm with you. You can go after Norvell now. He ain't gonna be.
No, that one ain't. Nope.
No,
that's horrible. That's crazy. They may be a 1 or 2. Florida State may win. Mike Brown just beat Florida State. Mike Brown could never beat Florida State.
No,
got to beat this Florida State team. They could be a 1 or 2 win team. Remember Texas fall from grace. They went from playing in a national title in 2009 to 5-7, and that was considered a precipitous fall from grace, which it was. And now you got Florida State, who now they didn't play in a national title, but they were in the conversation, and yet now they may be a 1 or 2 loss team, a win team, 1 or 2 win team on the season. That's crazy. All right. Anyway, Cowboys. We'll get into some more Cowboys conversation. We'll hear from Jerry Jones actually too. But yeah, what are the Cowboys going to do at head coach? Who's the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? Because the head coach has to be the one that helps you pick if you're going to have a top 10 pick, that helps you pick that franchise piece of the future, or at least has some type of input on that, because that's going to be your new identity as a team. And do they go offensive or defensive? I think they got to go offensive, but we shall see what Jerry Jones decides to do. But we know the future ain't Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy was a kind of lame duck coach, but now it's kind of a dead coach walking, like he's done. It's only a matter of time before the Cowboys start to move on. We'll talk more about that. We'll also get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We got to talk about the college football weekend that was. The Longhorns were on a bye week, but still a lot of college football action to get into. The Aggies went full-on Aggie at South Carolina. We'll dive into that too. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about my friend and my dentist, Dr. Greg Eckert, and his wonderful team. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. I initially went there for a routine cleaning and checkup, and I thought everything was okay. Turns out it wasn't, and they were they were quick to act there at Dr. Eckert's office. They made they're thorough in their checkup, so they made sure that they checked everything. And while they were checking, they found that my wisdom teeth were actually growing in sideways, folks. Yeah, they were impacting my molars. I mean, I was on the verge of a disastrous situation. If I'd waited any longer, potentially we'd be talking about an extraction of basically most of my molars as well as my wisdom teeth. But that was not the case. My friends over at Dr. Eckert's office, they acted quickly, made sure they got the procedure scheduled, made sure I was comfortable and educated about the process, informed about everything going on, got everything done. I was back at work within a couple of days, as you guys know. I didn't have to miss much time at all. And thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team, my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. And they can do the same for you. Now, hopefully, it's not as serious as having all your wisdom teeth extracted. Hopefully, for you, it's something pretty minor and routine. But if it is something serious, trust me, you're in great hands with Dr. Eckert and his wonderful team. So it doesn't matter if it's general dentistry or teeth whitening or dentures or porcelain crowns or veneers or dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. And right now, he can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secure to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they can complete your permanent smile. You're going to smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. So we're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, just call Dr. Eckert today to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day. Complimentary consultation. So it means you got nothing to lose, but everything to gain by reaching out to Dr. Eckert. Now, it may sound too good to be true, but it's not. It's just Dr. You. So give him a call today because a confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. He did it for me. He can do it for you. 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com. And if you tell them that that you heard it right here on the horn, you'll get a free Zoom whitening with any of your treatments there at Dr. Eckert's office. So make sure we're getting close to the end of the year. Make sure you use those benefits before you lose those benefits. And Dr. Eckert and his team can show you exactly how to do it to help you and your family. That's dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. I'm going to get into some Texas football conversation. And we brought this up earlier, but the Longhorns game against Florida just got a whole lot easier to game plan for because DJ Lagway who was, if you hadn't followed Florida, he was the backup quarterback to Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz, they they had they had some early season struggles, and there were some games where they put DJ Lagway in because Graham Mertz had gotten injured, or they had a package for him specifically, like a just because he's a dual threat quarterback. Graham Mertz, a pocket passing quarterback, but Graham Mertz getting hurt for the season, and then DJ Lagway was the starting quarterback after that. But DJ Lagway suffered a severe hamstring injury, or at least that has not been confirmed. That was the speculation in the game versus Georgia. He did not return, and in for him was Aiden Warner, who never expected to see the field. He was a walk-on transfer from Yale. And after the injuries to DJ Lagway and Graham Mertz before that, he is the starting quarterback. He's expected to start versus Texas, the walk-on transfer from Yale, and versus Kirby Smart. I mean, talk about being thrown into the fire. He was 7 of 22 for 66 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception in his time that he got a chance to play in that game. So he'll be better prepared, but he'll be going up against a defense that's just as good as that Georgia defense, because Texas defense is also considered an elite defense. And so he won't, in my opinion, he won't stand a chance versus that Texas defense. He ain't got a shot. And they got a lot of injuries anyway, too. I think they will get into the running game as the season, as far as the week goes on, previewing this matchup. I think their running backs actually are pretty damn good. One of them was hurt going into this week, but I expect him to be ready to play versus Texas. But he can't throw the football downfield with any accuracy, and he doesn't have the dual threat element that DJ Lagway brought to the table. Listen, Texas would have beat Florida with DJ Lagway anyway. It wouldn't have mattered. But I wanted them to have exposure to a true elite dual threat quarterback like DJ Lagway. They did. Diego Pavia's in that category too. But DJ Lagway, different animal, different beast altogether because of his arm. I mean, he's got an absolute cannon, one of the strongest arms in college football. And he is an elite runner with the football. Now, the Gators don't have a lot of pieces around him, but for the Texas defense, it would have been good to have, 3 out of your last 4 games, you're going to face dual threat quarterbacks. Arkansas's got one in Taylor Green. The Aggies lost South Carolina. They got one in Marcel Reed. Guys that can run, hurt you with their feet, or hurt you from the pocket. And I wanted Texas to get, almost a vaccine, if you will. We talk about vaccines, a lot of ways we have since COVID. Essentially, that's like a small exposure to the disease itself, whatever it is. And I see dual threat quarterbacks as that to defenses. They are kind of a virus, a disease, right, for a defense to try to figure out. A little exposure to them helps you, because when you don't see them, it's hard to just prepare for them in practice, because you can't replicate or simulate the problems they present. But the more you see them throughout the season, you get, like I said, almost like, exposure to them. You get vaccinated, if you will, and you figure out your different methods to try to neutralize, that dual threat. And Texas really, Pavia was the only one they really faced, and Pavia made some plays. Right, Pavia made some plays against Texas, and I don't think he made plays just because, at first, he's a good player, but I think more because Texas just hasn't seen it. That kid from Oklahoma wasn't a true dual threat quarterback. I mean, he could barely throw the football, 10 yards vertically downfield. DJ Lagway, man, he can scramble drill. I mean, he can throw it 50, 60 yards on the maybe on the run. I mean, that guy got an absolute cannon. So Texas won't have exposure to that. Now, when they see Taylor Green at Arkansas, Marcel Reed at A&M, it'll be one of the first times, other than Pavia, they've seen a quarterback like that. And they're very different than Pavia. Pavia's great, but he's great at throwing on the run, short to intermediary. They have a different offense altogether. And the more you are, like I said, the more you're exposed, and the more different game plans you have to come up with for a dual threat quarterback, you'll have more options, more solutions as a defense for whatever problems they're going to present to you. And now, at Arkansas, at A&M, you'll be facing 2 of the better dual threat quarterbacks nationally. And you won't have had, like I said, more access to more solutions to come up with more game plans to deal with them, because Pavia is really the only one you faced this year that's, I don't know, in that true dual threat category. I don't know if anybody else is really. Michael Hawkins, I guess, is there, but he wasn't. You guys watched him. He couldn't throw the football downfield at all. Lagway could have, but now Aiden Warner, Texas is going to eat this young man alive. That's just the reality. I wouldn't doubt they blitzed him a ton too. Against Michael Hawkins, speaking of, remember Texas had their highest blitz rate of the season against Michael Hawkins. Young quarterbacks, NFL or college. The book is, or the notion is, the accepted one is back, and they just try to overload their process. Try to overload them with information. Usually the blitz does that, and it speeds up their process. So they have to make decisions quickly. Young players, inexperienced players having to make decisions quickly usually leads to them making bad decisions and making mistakes. And that's what you want from a young quarterback. And so I think they'll probably blitz them. And you also against Oklahoma, remember they had their top like 4 or 5 starting receivers that were out. If Florida, because Eugene Wilson is their best receiver, he was out for the game versus Georgia. If he's out again, then expect Texas to have a similar game plan because they won't be afraid of their wideouts. They won't have any fear that the wideouts can beat the corners one-on-one. That was the case versus Oklahoma, and I'm not sure if they have any fear of Florida's skill position guys being able to win on the outside versus the Texas DBs either. If that's the case, why not just go after the quarterback? And I think you'll see some of that too in this matchup. So it's not what it was. It's not going to be a challenge that it once was for the Texas defense. For the Texas offense, the challenge will be, in my opinion, because I believe the Florida rush defense is like 88th in the country. The Florida pass defense is a little bit better. I think they're right around average in college football. They're probably 68th or around there, but they have struggled. Their rush defense, they have struggled to stop teams on the ground. And if you go look at, like I said, I think they were 88th overall in rushing defense. If you look at the teams that Texas has played that were worse or as bad as Florida is in rush defense, you're basically talking about ULM and Mississippi State are the only defense they played that were worse than Florida's rush defense and where it's ranked right now. And you ran, I believe, for almost 200 yards on both Mississippi State and against ULM. Yeah, ULM you ran for 239. Against Mississippi State, you ran for 199. I think that might have been your 2 best rushing performances of the season. I got to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure it was. So that's the question. In this matchup, will you see Texas, because they have also better skill guys in the back 7, in my opinion, than some of the teams Texas has played too, because it's Florida. Florida's got talent. It's Florida. And so will Sark decide to attack their biggest weakness, which is their rush defense, or will Texas will just keep, sticking with the extensions of the running game, detached screens on the outside. And I imagine a lot of that will be dependent on how Florida decides to play Texas. Will they give up the underneath? Will they give up a light box? Will they keep the safeties deep? And if they keep the safeties deep, I still think, Texas could decide to run the football. That would be the question. Do they run the football against a bad Florida rush defense, or do they decide, you know what, no, we're going to stick with the extensions of the running game, long handoffs, screen game, detached screens, swing screens, flare routes, check downs? Are they going to continue to do that, or are they going to try to spark the running game? Did they improve in their run blocking in the run game versus Florida? And yes, Florida will blitz Texas. If Florida does not blitz Texas, Florida ain't been paying attention. All right. So Quinn should get blitzed early and often. And like I said, I don't know how they'll probably, if I'm Florida, boundary cornerback blitz, slot cornerback blitz, A gap blitz, delayed rushers, delayed blitzes. Or even if it's a simulated pressure, I'll have it coming from the second level and be delayed. Texas is going to see a ton of that versus Florida. If they don't see a lot of it versus Florida, like I said, Florida ain't been paying attention. Because that's what Texas has struggled with and did struggle with going into the bye week. But I'm sure during the bye week, they, rectified some of those issues. You won't know it until you see Texas deal with that on the field. And I think Florida will probably present some of those problems to Texas. But if the passing game they had versus Wake Forest, even though even though that Vanderbilt, even though they had some success with some of the tip passes and they got some sacks, Texas did have the right game plan to avoid the high pressure rates, which was get the ball out quick and get the ball out to your guys on the perimeter. Make it a yak-oriented game. Like 80% of the total passing yards for Quinn were yak yards. Does the offense stay that conservative? Or do we see them take more shots downfield? Or even do we see Texas pivot and go more to the running game? I think those are the questions that I have versus Florida. But either way, I mean, Texas is going to, I mean, right now they're a 21-point favorite versus Florida. So I don't want to make it seem like this is going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a close game. It could be early in the first quarter, maybe, but I ultimately don't see this being a competitive game. I think Texas is going to pull away early against Florida, and I think ultimately it'll be the Texas defense that sets the tone because I don't see how Florida's going to move the football. I don't see it at all. Not with them being a one-dimensional team and only being a team that can run the football because they're not going to be able to throw it very much with their third-string walk-on quarterback. All right, we'll come back and get into the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Also, we have your musically themed day of the week. We'll get into all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Baby's coming back on the horn.
Back in the Rodcast on a Monday morning, and that means it's a smooth soul Monday, easing you back in to the work week after hopefully a fun-filled weekend where you had a less stress than normal because no Texas football game. And if you're a Texans fan, the Texans already lost, so you'd already moved on from that. And the Cowboys fan maybe is probably still stressful, but no Texas football game this weekend, so it was a little less stressful for all of us. On a smooth soul Monday. Let's get into the Big Fat Poll today. Text lines open 512-447-3776. 3776 is the text line number. And we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
We'll talk about it more, but the Longhorns are starting their basketball season tonight. So we will ask you, which player are you most excited to see debut for the Longhorns tonight? Lots of new players on this team this year. I'll throw 4 out there that are probably the 4 that will play the most. And I think this is an easy one that I think I know it'll be pretty much a landslide on this one, that Trey Johnson will be the guy that most people want to see. He is the freshman phenom that is supposed to be coming in a top 5 recruit in the country. He is somebody that I think a lot of people are going to want to see. So Trey Johnson's on there, but you're also bringing in Jordan Pope, the guard from Oregon State, who is an electric scorer as well. See what he can do. Tremont Mark, you brought him in from Arkansas, a really good player that probably wouldn't have even been in the transfer portal except for the fact that his coach left. His coach goes to USC, so he decides to move on. They got new coaching there. And then Arthur Kaluma coming over from Kansas State to help out shore up that roster. Probably going to be a starter. I think he's going to be a starter. So Arthur Kaluma as well coming up. He has been a guy that has improved every year from Creighton to Kansas State to now to Texas. He keeps improving his game. So let's see what he's able to do. If you have another name on there, if there's somebody else that you want to see, we'll go through. I can go through. I have the roster kind of broken down for you. We can go through and give you a little bit more of what to expect. But who do you have that you are most excited to see debut for the Longhorns tonight?
Oh, good question. Yeah, and we'll get into some Texas basketball conversation next. I want to hear Patrick preview kind of the team and their matchup tonight versus Ohio State. So we'll get into that a little bit. Also, I want to get into some college football discussion. Probably some coaches are stressed out. Got some tantrums to get into. Tom Herman went viral because he went after an opposing coach after a post-game handshake that he didn't think he thought he was disrespected. Thought the opposing coach tried to big time him. So we'll get into that a little bit and talk about the history of it. We'll get into Kirby Smart. He was caught on camera trying to get his team hype, and I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a coach do this on camera. I think I've seen it off camera, but not on camera. So we'll get to that too. And there's also James Franklin, and we tried to tell y'all about James Franklin. I mean, I like James Franklin. James Franklin is not a big game coach. Not a big game coach. Proved it once again versus Ohio State. Penn State comes up short in that game. So we'll get into that because that was the biggest game over the weekend, top 5 matchup between Ohio State and Penn State. And the college football playoff rankings, actually, the first ones of the season come out, I believe, this week. So we'll start looking ahead to that a little bit. And the NFL MVP race, I believe now, close to the halfway point of the season, we're starting to get some clarity on who your favorites are for MVP. I think we got one in the AFC and one in the NFC. I think it may be at this point getting close to a 2-horse race, if you will. We'll talk about it. Maybe 3. Maybe there are 3 horses in this race. We'll talk about that too coming up a little bit later on. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Smooth Soul Monday edition of the Rodcast, and we appreciate Patrick coming up with all our musically themed days of the week. But on a Smooth Soul Monday, he plays jams intended to soothe the tortured soul of sports fans who might have had a really tough weekend. Talking to you, Cowboys fans. He intends to also make it a smooth transition for you from hopefully, it was a very relaxing, a very stress-free, fun weekend for you. But we know the work week can often be the exact opposite. It can be very dramatic, traffic and meetings and a lot of adulting going on. So he wants to make it a smooth transition for you out there from the weekend to the work week. That's the purpose of a smooth Soul Monday. So we appreciate Patrick hooking us up there. He also hooks us up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, which is already posted at the Horn ATX. Go check it out for yourself on X. Patrick, what is the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day?
Big Fat Poll today. Which player are you most excited to see debut for the Longhorns tonight? The four I gave you are probably all going to be starters for you. Trey Johnson, Jordan Pope, Tremone Mark, and Arthur Kaluma. Probably all going to be starters for you, all new starters for you as well.
I know. I mean, that's kind of the new era of college basketball, right? I mean,
it is.
It
is the new era of letting people transfer more and NIL and coaching shiftings. The coaching carousel changes so much as well. And, it's the reality too is like, if you look at the difference between football and basketball, you can still get playing time in football and you can play a lot of players. So, a guy may sit out a year and it's more, but in basketball, people go, if there's an 8-man rotation, 8 to 9 man, and I'm 11, I'm never seeing the court.
No.
So it's time for me to move somewhere where I can see the court. So I can go, I'll move down basically a level to go play. And then I move to a team that's not as good and I can go play some. And then if I do really well there, I can transfer back up a level, but I need to get playing time. Yeah. And so everybody's just basically trying to find their playing time somewhere and then move into a better situation for themselves. And it's just really hard when they say they want to develop, but if well, they're just going to keep replacing guys in front of me. It's really hard for me to develop if I can't get on the court. And then every year I'm now a junior and they just brought in another guy who's ahead of me. They brought in another guy who's ahead of me because they're trying to bring in stars every year. It becomes difficult as a player to develop the way you want. So they got to move on. And for the coaching staffs, we know you're not allowed to have down seasons.
Not anymore. Now with the transfer portal and NIL, there's no, it's not a real excuse for at Texas, at places.
Yeah,
like Texas.
No, and so as much as you love to be able as coaches to be like, I'd love to have guys on my roster for 3 or 4 years. I can't risk because I won't be here in 3 or 4 years. Nope. If I just try and say, hey man, it's a process and we'll be really good in 2 years. Nope. But we may be good. You ain't gonna be here.
Yeah, you may pick a couple of guys you want, a few guys on your roster that you want to build in that way. Like, hey, now I want to have kind of some certain elements or roles on our team. I want them to be kind of organically developed through the program from high school recruiting. You can go that route, but even like I said, it's weird because the guys you want from high school, you want them to be so good that they're one and done. So like if that's your dream, they're that good. That's amazing. That means they're one of the best players in the country. And like you said, ultimately, guys it's hard to build depth because guys who aren't playing, they want to play, so they're leaving. They're not going to stay there just for depth for you. So they're playing. They're trying to play, and then ultimately, as a coach, you're trying to make sure that you have the best talent available. So each year you're looking to upgrade talent too. So it kind of the monster just feeds itself. That
it does.
Just have a ton of turnover in college basketball. It's just the way it's gonna be. But you got to get to know your team every year. That's basically kind of it. You got to get to know a different team every year. Those days of you having, there'll still be some stories, I imagine. Well, actually, I don't know this because the framework of college sports is about to change again in the very near future. Nobody has any idea how it's going to look, by the way. They still have not released details about exactly what's been approved for roster limits and how much in terms of revenue sharing, how much players are getting and student athlete. They still have not. I don't think they know. Actually,
yeah, I don't think
just yet. So what we're talking about right now is going to change again, but I think it's going to change and end up, facilitating more and more turnover. I don't think it's going to shift backwards where you'll have more teams. Keep players around.
And you're seeing more old school coaches basically just get out of it because they don't want to be like they're having a hard time making that transition. They say they don't want to be there, so they're moving on, which opens up job positions, which means that you were just at every level having coaches go from one job to another. And then anytime someone feels they're on the hot seat, even if they're not getting fired, they're looking for that next job just to move on and go, my expectations here are now Elite Eight or bust. And I mean, I have to rebuild this roster and bring guys in, and the NIL, my boosters don't want to give me the money anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and take this job where I can be the new coach. And there's just so much movement in it now that it's difficult.
No, you're right. Yeah, it's actually, in terms of football, it's actually less stable than football.
Yeah,
because of there's just so much turnover at all the levels. All right, we'll get to a Texas basketball preview because I want to give my man Patrick the floor to have him break down the matchup tonight, but also Texas basketball, what he thinks it's going to look like with all these new pieces. We'll get to that. We'll also get to some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Of course, we'll talk more Dallas Cowboys. We talked a ton of Cowboys in the first hour. We'll get back to the Fuster Cluck that is the Dallas Cowboys, now at 3-5 after their 27-21 loss to the Falcons. Dak Prescott dealing with a hamstring injury. So that looks like that's going to affect them for the foreseeable future, and having a discussion about should the Cowboys be thinking about the dreaded T word, tanking. Should the Cowboys maybe closer to that option than a lot of Cowboys fans would like to admit at this point. So we'll get back to that.
The dreaded T word was Trey Lance.
You might be there too. Where what's the point in playing Cooper Rush?
Yeah,
what's the benefit? At least you could argue there's more of a benefit to playing Trey Lance.
Oh yeah,
because if he plays well, you got trade. That's a potential trade piece for you. You can finally trade him. And if he doesn't play well, maybe you should be tanking anyway. You need to Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush has won some games in the NFL. You know what I mean? So, and that winning, I don't know. You could argue, the Cowboys are still in it mathematically. They are, but this Cowboys team isn't very good. We keep looking for solutions that are going to fix them this season, like immediate short-term solutions. And the truth is, this Cowboys team, even without the injuries, even if you take the injuries off the table, they still weren't going to be competing for a championship. I don't even know if they were good enough to win a division if they were completely healthy. I don't know if they were that. I don't know if the injuries made that big of a difference, because early on in the season they were also struggling. And now we learned that there are cultural issues with the Cowboys. Of course, we knew there are some cultural issues, but the Ezekiel Elliott story where he didn't travel with the team because of disciplinary reasons. Turns out he was being late for meetings, and he had been tardy multiple times.
They made a mutual decision.
Yeah, so come on, man. And then Dak on the sideline, we effing suck. Yeah, that's the hot mic moment. It's not a hot mic, but it's the same. It's that same honesty you get from somebody on a hot mic when they think nobody's listening and they're off the record.
I kind of want Dak.
I
want Dak to make a full heel turn, and they'll ask him about it, and he goes, "Is that what you said?" And he goes, "No, I said they effing suck."
I thought he should say we. I know
it's just funny.
That'd be great if he did that. Oh, you're like, that would be epic. That would be epic. Oh no, Dak would never do it.
No,
and that's why I love Dak, because he's a we guy. He said we effing suck. You're damn right. Aaron Rodgers would have been like, man. These guys really do effing suck. No, that's we. It's a we, because Dak's a part of it too. Dak was not great. Dak has not been great this season. He has not been great. I think he's part of the solution going forward, but he has not been great this season. And guys, you got the Eagles. Eagles are playing well. You can see right now all the good quarterbacks are starting to separate. They're playing better. The good quarterbacks down the stretch. Matt Stafford is starting to, he's got his team rolling. He looked great in overtime. Jalen Hurts is starting to play. Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff is. Can we talk about Jared Goff for a second? And I know we'll get to the horn headlines. We'll get to the preview here of Texas basketball in a second too. But okay, I think Jared Goff right now is taking the lead for the MVP again. I think it's going back and forth. I don't know what the odds are. This is just me in my head. This is eye test stuff. So I'm not going off the odds. I don't know what the odds are. But the Jared Goff numbers are starting to get freaky the last 6 games. The last 6 games, he's got the highest completion percentage in any 6-game span in NFL history. All right. He's now got the highest completion percentage in the last 6 games in that span, 82.8%, and the highest passer rating of 140. and this is, like I said, NFL history. He's got, in the last 6 games, he's got more touchdowns than incompletions in the last 6 games. He's only got 24 incompletions. He's got 28 touchdowns. They're the only team since at least 1940 with more touchdowns and incompletions in a 6-game span. I think it's the Detroit Lions, actually. I think they got a trick play in there where they did something. So it's the Detroit Lions, even though it's mostly Jared Goff. I think it's the Lions because Ben Johnson does some crazy, freaky stuff where he also have trick plays and running backs throwing into offensive linemen and stuff like that. But that's how good Jared Goff has been. So I that's unbelievable. I didn't realize he was playing at such high level. I watched it, obviously, the game last night or yesterday where they beat up on the Green Bay Packers. But man, they're the Detroit Lions right now. They're the only NFC kind of juggernaut right now. They look like a true juggernaut in the NFC. They do.
No,
it's hard to say that about the Detroit Lions.
But the main issue you have with the Lions right now is, are they peaking too early? That's basically all you can say for them. Because everything else, it looks like they're the most dominant team, really, pretty much in the NFL right now. I don't know if there's anybody else who's playing better football than them. Because we
can't say he's undefeated, but they're not playing better football.
Yeah, and I mean, and they'll probably remain undefeated tonight against the beat up Buccaneers team. But it'll be a one-score game.
Field goal, the field goal game. They don't care. That's how they don't care about what they'll.
But So I don't know if there's any other team, and so it looks very much like they came in pissed off, that they weren't able to finish the job last year.
Yep.
And they did no flip switch in there. Just turn it on and let's go.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because they don't have any championship DNA or pedigree. Remember, our theory is that once you get to the pedigree and the DNA, like Kansas City just flipping switches. For 3 quarters, they play at a certain level. Then they're like, guys, we need to close this thing out, and they flip the switch because they've played at the highest level and played at an elite level on the biggest stage, which is the Super Bowl. So they know what it feels like. They know what it takes. They know the focus that you have to have. They got it all. Most teams don't, because no teams haven't even been there enough to do it. Texas, like we talked about there, Georgia flipped the switch on Texas. You see them versus Florida? They didn't care that much versus Florida. They got through that game. They trailed, I think, in the first half. A lot of the first half, actually, in that game. They didn't flip the switch on them. They have that ability, though, because they've been there for so long. So Detroit doesn't. So I'm with you. I think all they know is all gas, no brakes. They're just mashing folks.
Yeah.
And right now, in the NFC, I really don't see any way to keep right now, other than some catastrophic injury, which they've already had, by the way, because they lost their best defensive player and the guy was leading the NFL in sacks. So that was supposed to, at least derail them a little bit. I mean, at least start the wheels wobbling a little bit. It did not. And there's a rumor that before the trade deadline that they're going to make a move, that they're going to get themselves a pass rusher. Because they got to do something to supplement the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. It won't be him, but there's a lot of people saying that a lot of reports or rumors, I should say, not reports yet, but rumors that before the trade deadline, Lions are going to make a splash.
Yeah,
they're going to go get a pass rushing dog.
And that's I've heard that. And I my guess would be too is they're probably trying to vet whoever they're bringing in too. They're probably talking about, well, we're okay giving up the draft capital. We're okay with all of that.
Oh yeah,
we're more worried about, we don't want to bring somebody in who's going to derail our chemistry and derail what we've got going on, where this team is so focused in being. You don't want to bring somebody in who doesn't have the right attitude. So you got to vet and just make sure you're not bringing the wrong piece in. But yeah, it would not surprise me at all if they come out at the end and say, who's beating our offer?
Yeah, right now. Like I said, I don't know who it is, but there's just whispers of it. And there have been for a while, since the Aiden Hutchinson injury. So there you go. Detroit Lions, they're playing really well. And, honestly, in terms of the MVP race, I don't know how it's going to happen, but Lamar Jackson is still playing. And he's playing better this year than last year when he won the MVP. He had a perfect passer rating. He in this game, the game this weekend. He now has the most games with a perfect passer rating in his career since 1950. He's got 4 of them.
It's crazy.
And if you look at he right now has the 4th highest rated. He has the 4th highest passer rating in a single season. Currently, this continues in NFL history. Aaron Rodgers has the two highest, 122.5 in 2011, 121.5 in 2020. Peyton Manning in 2004 had a passer rating all season long of 121.1. And if you go look at it through 9 games, Lamar Jackson is at 120.7. If that continues, that'll be the 4th highest in NFL history. And also the three highest passer ratings ahead of his this season all won the MVP. Aaron Rodgers, those 2 years, 2011, 2020, and Peyton Manning in 2004 won the MVP. So I don't know how, like I said, it was, to me, I think ultimately it's going to hurt him because there's fatigue that he's won it last year and he won one prior to that. And so he's already a 2-time MVP, but don't mistake it. He's having a better season this year than his MVP season. And Jared Goff, I think, is the only one right now that I think could take away Lamar Jackson MVP the way he's playing right now. Josh Allen is in it, but Josh Allen is not playing with Lamar Jackson's level. He's not right now. Giving it to Josh Allen over Jared Goff or Lamar Jackson would be, be a travesty at this point because he's not playing better than those guys. But who else is in it?
I don't know. We'll see.
Patrick Mahomes is always in it.
Yeah,
but we all know Patrick Mahomes is not playing
it'll be in the second half of that season. See who pulls up in that second half. But yeah, right now it's hard not to give it to him again.
That's crazy. That'd be unbelievable. I think Goff. I think they'd give it to Goff. At the end of the day, just give it to Goff, and they'd be like they justify it somehow. But man, Lamar Jackson, trust me, he's making a hell of a case. All right, we'll talk some more NFL coming up. Well, let's talk some Texas basketball on the side first. Let's get these Horn headlines. We'll get updated, educated, and informed with all the headlines from the weekend. Then we'll come back, dive into some Texas basketball discussion. But first, Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs beat the Timberwolves on Saturday night, 113-103. 5 Spurs scored in double digits, and Chris Paul racked up 13 assists. The Rockets came back from down 31 to force overtime against the Warriors, but still lost 127-121, with Tari Eason leading the way off the bench with 27 points. And the Mavericks took down the Magic 108-85, holding Orlando to 33% shooting for the game. Tonight, the Spurs face the Clippers. The Rockets take on the Knicks, and the Mavericks are up against the Pacers. In college football, 7 top 25 teams took a loss on Saturday, with most notably Ohio State beating Penn State 20-13, Louisville knocking off Clemson 33-21, and South Carolina giving Texas A&M their first loss in conference play with a 44-20 win. Texas moves up to number 5 in this week's poll. In the NFL, the Cowboys took a hard loss to the Falcons 27-21, with both Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb being injured in the game. Also around the league, the Lions got a 24-14 win over the Packers, and the Vikings got back on track with a 21-13 win over the Joe Flacco-led Colts. Tonight, the Buccaneers head to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. And in college basketball, Texas begins their season tonight as the number 19 team in the country, taking on Ohio State in Las Vegas for the Hall of Fame series. 18 teams in the top 25 are taking on action tonight, kicking off the season with number 8 Baylor versus number 6 Gonzaga headlining the night. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Appreciate those. We'll also get to some college football action from over the weekend. There's some coaches who I think we got to talk about. I think maybe we're at the point now where the season is really stressful because it's almost elimination games for some coaches in terms of conference championship play, and also obviously for the college football playoff for some teams too. So I think you're at the point now where coaches are really stressed out, and you're starting to see that, I think, play out on the football field in some bad ways too, some funny ways, but some bad ways, just straight up conduct unbecoming of a head coach. But we'll get into that because Tom Herman is a part of this group. Kirby Smart's one of those coaches too. We'll get into it. James Franklin had an interaction with a fan. That's always, I don't even know why coaches, when a fan says something like that, I don't even know why coaches entertain it. I mean, you should just let that bounce off you. It's hard to let it bounce off you. Yeah. I get it. Trust me. When a fan starts saying disrespectful stuff, I get it. It's hard to let it bounce off. But oh man, you can't confront the fan. And then either way, when he was being, and there was no, he wasn't anger, and he wasn't, I don't think he raised his voice at all. But why even entertain it?
Yeah, I know you're trying to teach the young man a lesson, but at the same part, he ain't listening.
That ain't the time for it. That ain't the time for it. It's never gonna end well. Just gonna let it roll off your shoulders and just keep it moving. But it happens. I get it. So we'll talk about that. I think some coaches are really stressed out. And now at this point in the season, you start to see that play out on the sidelines a little bit. We'll get into that in Rod's rant and also talk more NFL. But first, I'm excited, and so is Patrick, about the Texas basketball season starting up tonight. So if you want to know some of the players, obviously, and kind of what this team is going to look like, my man Patrick's going to break it down for you. A little Texas basketball preview. So I'll give him the floor. Let's go. You got it, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, when we're looking at this Texas team this year, we just talked about a little bit earlier, the way of college basketball now is you're going to have a lot of new players on this roster. They're returning 20% of their minutes from last season, which is mostly coming from Kendall Weaver and Caden Shedrick. Those are your two main guys that are returning. You have three players that are returning, but you're getting Kendall Weaver back. He's that 6'3" guard, came in last year and really stepped out as a guy you weren't necessarily expecting to give you big minutes and be a really important part. He started for a lot of the season last year. He's got that nonstop motor. He's a defensive pest, a guy you can get in there that'll get in people's in hair and just really cause problems defensively. If he improves his three-point per shooting this season, he is going to be a much bigger threat. It became a problem last year where he was one of the guys they could sag off of. And so he was pretty good at driving the paint. He's got athleticism. He can jump out of the gym. But at the same part, if you can't draw the defense out to guard you at the three-point line, it's really hard to get to the basket. So he's got to work on that in the offseason. If you see that start to pick up, then watch out for him to get even more minutes and be more important to this team this season. Caden Shedrick is another one of the big names coming back. 6'11", center for Texas. Dealt with a lot of injuries last year, coming in and out. Really couldn't get in front of Dylan DeSue in that. He had some big games early on offensively, but his offensive output kind of went down with the injuries throughout the season. He's still a good shot blocker, a good rebounder. He's got a post-up game, but sometimes he takes a little too long in the post-up game, gets indecisive in it, and that's how you create turnovers because teams can come down on top of you, then cut away passing lanes, and it becomes more difficult. Also, it takes away your offense because people stop moving. And once everybody stops moving, if you don't have the shot anymore and everyone's standing still and your passing lanes are gone, that offensive possession is usually kind of done. So if he can work on that, he's got to stay healthy and stay on the court. It's going to be big. This is one of the Texas things this year. They don't have a ton of size. They're not big inside, and not a lot of teams do. In the college game, you just don't have a lot of, 6'10", 6'11", 7-footers that are really good that stay in the game. Most of those guys go pro sooner because the pros want 7-footers too. So, you get the guys that you get in college sometimes aren't there. And then if you do get a guy, it's somebody more like a Zach Edey or a Luka Garza, who is really good, but then their people are worried about if that game translates to the NBA. Texas has tried to get more guys that they feel game translates to the NBA. So this is a guy who's a shot blocker, a rebounder, can do all those things. So if he can stay on the court, he doesn't draw the field, doesn't draw the defense out. So you may see him come out and play some more small ball at points too, to keep that lane open for their guys who are good at attacking the rim to pull them off the court. You could see that. Zirko Onyema also coming back, 6'9" forward, played some early for the Longhorns last season. Really physical player into the basket. He's got to work on not getting into foul trouble and also just not really a big offensive threat. So he can give you some minutes. If he improves a little bit this season, it'll be a big help, giving them a little bit more help in guarding big men when they have to play against some of these 7-footers and some of these teams with big men. That'll be big for him. Your freshman coming in, the big one is Trey Johnson, 6'6" guard, top 5 prospect in the country. He's an elite scorer. This is a guy who can shoot threes at a high clip. He can get to the basket at a high clip. He can do all of the things that you want to see in a scorer. He can do all of it, pretty athletic as well. The question is he going to be able to play big minutes? Stamina is usually a big deal for freshmen coming in, especially early in a season. How many minutes can you play in a college basketball game? You're used to playing high school, used to playing less minutes, used to playing a less demanding game. And defensively, we just don't know what he's going to be because a lot of stuff we've seen him in, he was not really made to be the defensive player. So we'll see what he can do. And then you just always have to watch out for turnovers. Every freshman, you got to watch out for turnovers. The game moves at a faster pace. Passes you used to be able to make with ease become a lot harder. So that's what you're looking for him. But his upside is this guy could be a top pick in the draft next season. This guy could be a really big player for you, especially because his elite scoring. So we'll see if he comes out tonight and is able to get it going early in his college basketball career, or it takes him a little bit longer to get that shot going, because sometimes it does for a freshman.
Is he going to be your main ball handler?
No. He'll be your shooting guard. He's off your off guard. But he should be where the offense, at least by mid-season, end of season, should be running through him. If everything goes to plan, then he will get a lot of touches going through the season. But we'll see early how his game translates against an Ohio State team tonight. You also brought in Nick Cody, he's a 6'8" forward, extremely athletic, needs to develop his offensive game a little bit more. So he probably won't play a ton, depending on how much they need him. If Shedrick can stay healthy, he'll play less. Yeah. If Shedrick doesn't, you might need Nick Cody to step up. If he can play at a high level and match up and give you 5 to 10 minutes a game throughout this season, that would be huge. But I wouldn't expect Nick Cody to play a ton. And Jamie Vincent, a 6'11" center they got. He was a really late add-in. He's kind of a late bloomer, too. He can shoot threes at 6'11". He can rim protect. He's a really good rim protector. Just really needs a lot more work to get to where he needs to be to play at this level. So I don't expect to see him very much, but you could see him pop in because he's 6'11", and sometimes they just put 6'11" guys out on the court. Say we need a body. We need a body out there right now. Your transfers. One of your biggest transfers, Jordan Pope, 6'2" guard from Oregon State. That will be your primary ball handler. Coming up the court, he is a great scorer as well. Averaged 17.6 points per game last season. Shot 37% from three. His problem is that he's never been a big defensive player, so you're going to have to get up that. Now, Rodney Terry does scheme defense very well. Rodney Terry gets the best defensive play out of his players. He is taking guys that don't play great defense and improve their defense. Like Max Asmus is a guy last year that played better defense than you thought he was in situations, but you have to keep that motor going, and sometimes it's hard with players like that because especially when they're scoring, that defense kind of lags.
The effort on both ends of the floor.
There's points of that where we just have to see where he goes this season, but he is a guy that you're really looking forward to. Okay. And the other question is, Oregon State was not really a good team last season, and so when he starts to play with better talent, when he has to share the ball more, when you're talking about playing against a little bit better competition as well, can he step his game up? But he has progressed each year, and so you're hoping that he's going to be able to step in that role. The other one, Tremont Mark, is your other really big transfer you brought in. He was going to stay. He was I think third all-team SEC last season at Arkansas. Played for Houston before that, and probably would have stayed at Arkansas, except that Musselman left. He went to USC. So if you say that, he decided, new coach, I'm going to go back to Texas, and where he's coming in 6'5". He's a really, really good defender. He's a tough player. He's going to attack the rim as well at 16.2 points per game, 36% three-point shooter. Doesn't shoot a ton, but I would imagine Rodney Terry's offense are going to want him to kind of try and get that three-point percentage up a little bit more. He's improved on it. So if we can get him to shoot a little bit better, that's another piece for you, but attacks the rim as well with a lot of power. Very athletic guy there. Arthur Kaluma is a guy who got to come in late, forward from Kansas State, played at Creighton before that. Very versatile guy. He's a guy that when you're playing small ball, it's 6'7". He will go inside a little bit more and bump bodies. He's got a wide enough frame. So as long as you're not playing against a real 7-footer that's going to back him down over and over again, if they're playing someone who's 6'9", 6'10", he'll match up sometimes there playing small ball. He's 14.4 points per game last season. The three-point percentage has jumped up each year. It needs to still improve. It was at 34% last year. It needs to go up a little bit more than that to have him be a consistent three-point shooter. But that's really his biggest deal is inconsistency. You saw him in some games last year look like he should have been a star. In other games look like he should have been on the bench. So seeing that, if he can become a little bit more consistent, will help out there. You also brought in a couple guys from Indiana State, Jason Kent, the 6'8" forward, and Julian Larry, the 6'3" guard. Jason Kent, really physical player, really good rebounder at 6'8", and attacks the rim as well. He got a lot of passes on back cuts and other things when other teammates in Indiana State were getting attention. Remember, they had that guard Avila, or the center Avila last year, if everybody saw him, that had the goggles on for Indiana State, and everybody loved him. He had all the names, the nicknames for a big white guy who was playing like dominant center. And but he would get back cuts because guys would come out on Avila. He would be able to get back cut and get those. Julian Larry. Now, this is the guy, when you say Jordan Pope, not great defensively, Julian Larry is a guy who makes himself a pest.
I gotcha.
He is somebody that will go in. He's okay from three, but he doesn't take a lot of them. You, again, probably will see Rodney Terry try and get him to be a little more confident in those, finding the right threes for him, but a really pesky defender as well, what you want to see from him. They also brought in Malik Presley, a 6'6" wing from Vanderbilt. He's got potential. He's a solid rebounder. He's athletic, but he didn't play a lot for Vanderbilt last year. Vanderbilt wasn't good. So he's a Texas kid. So you expect him to, maybe get a little bit of run, see what they can get out of him, but I wouldn't expect a ton out of him this season. Maybe more of a project guy that you can try and build up. But again, that was kind of what Kendall Weaver was as well. And we saw what Kendall Weaver became. So you bring in these guys and you see what you can get out of them. The rest of the roster, you got Colbot and Preston Clark. Those are both your walk-ons, along with Anthony McDermott. And Devin Pryor is a guy that is project guy. Hope these can turn out and get a little bit better. But he's someone that wants to play for Texas. And it's just, you get stuck kind of into that bench. So you're probably not going to see him a lot, but maybe you'll see him some early in the season, especially if they can get some big wins, get out big leads. You may see him get in a little bit. Your likely starting rotation for this team is going to be Jordan Pope, Trey Johnson, Tremont Mark, and Arthur Kaluma and Caden Shedrick will most likely be your starting lineup. We could see that change. Rodney Terry, I believe, has said he has 9 starters on this roster, 8 or 9 starters on this roster. So that may mean he may switch up due to matchups. If the team isn't going to have a big guy, you may see Shedrick come out and they put in a Jason Kent and try and play more with wings. This is a really wing strong team, which is one of their big flaws last season. They just didn't have the wings. They have wings now. They still don't necessarily have the guys inside. They weren't able to get a big 7-footer. They tried after a couple guys. They just weren't able to bring them in, get the guy to want to come in and play. So that's going to be your issue against these teams that have dominant bigs. You're going to have to worry about that. Coming off the bench, Kendall Weaver still going to be a big piece off that bench. The 2 guys from Ohio State as well, and Larry and Kent. And then Onyema will probably get some more minutes this year as well. As long as he doesn't get in foul trouble, you need another big in there. He's a guy who plays like a big. And then, Presley, Cody, and Vincent probably all more on that third tier of getting some minutes early in the season. But by the end mid-season, I don't expect to see them on the court too much. You're looking at an Ohio State team tonight. Really, guard play is where they're going to try and do their best. They have, a couple guys that do pretty well for them. So seeing what they're able to pull out of this game with Michi Johnson is their shooting guard, and Bruce Thornton is kind of their leading scorer. Those 2 guys to watch out there. They do have some 7-footers. They have some big guys. None of them have ever really done much in their career. So we'll see if Ohio State tries to go and attack them early. They're unranked, but they're ranked. Basically, they're getting votes. Ken Palm, everyone has them around 30th in the country, somewhere around there. Yeah. So not that far out of the top 25, not that far off of what Texas is. It should be a really good matchup tonight to see what they can do. But you're just kind of trying to see some of these guys like Jordan Pope. Can he elevate his game to play at the level that he needs to play at for these teams? Trey Johnson, what does he look like as a freshman? Does Tremont Mark take another step towards being an NBA player? Those are the questions. And then Caden Shedrick, what does he look like coming off? Because if he can step up and play like he did some early last season, be a huge piece for the Longhorns.
No, man, that's a nice breakdown there. And, we've talked about this before. And you watch as much Texas basketball as anybody I know. Do you have an idea about what Rodney Terry's vision is based on now the pieces he's acquired, what style of play he wants to, use, what style of play that he wants to be kind of the identity of the program?
I mean, he wants to be a defensive team. You want to be defensive, you want to run, and, got a lot of athletic guys who can attack the rim. But, I mean, it's kind of pretty simple basketball. You don't have the big men, so you're not going to have that throw it inside, play inside out, dominant, just pound it inside. So what you're going to want to do is cut a lot of guys driving and then trying to get the defense to collapse, pass it out, and hit those threes. Last year they had problems. They did that sometimes, and they just didn't have the 3-point shooters at points. And everybody knew it's like, just stay on Max Asmus. That's your main guy. And so they would let you have the guys who couldn't shoot threes be out there. Yep. Everyone now is over a 30% 3-point shooter, 35. If you get some of those guys closer to that 40%, that's where you start to feel more and more comfortable having those guys shoot. So I'm sure they've been working on it all season. I'm sure they're putting everything into it to get these guys a little bit more confident from 3-pointers. But that's what they're going to aim for, and then put the ball in Trey Johnson's hands in moments and let him create and let him do what he does as an elite scorer. Jordan Pope, let him do what he does as an elite scorer. So you'll go through your guards. Then you have just a lot of wings. Last year there was a lot of matchups because Tyrese Hunter and Max Asmus were both small, Both those guys are about 6'1", like 5'11", 6'1". Yeah. So if you have both of those guys in, it's going to become they were kind of a problem. Now your guys, Jordan Pope 6'2", Tremo Mark 6'5", Kalumas 6'7", Trey Johnson 6'6". So you get a little bit more size out on those positions. And, you're losing Dylan DeSue. That's a big one. Dylan Mitchell played a lot for you, but he can never get that three-pointer going. So his offense would be completely inconsistent from week to week. I think you can add in guys that can do some of the stuff. They won't be as athletic as him, but they can also add a little bit more of a shooting range to pull defenders off. And Dylan DeSue is just a big loss. You're going to have those. You can't, guys can't play forever.
Yeah.
But at the same part, if you can make Trey Johnson be an elite scorer, then that's going to get you up. And Max A. Smith, he had big games, but I was never the biggest fan of him overall. Just that I didn't feel that he necessarily was able to elevate his game to make Texas an elite team.
Yeah,
with his scoring, and that's really what he needed.
Others with him. He couldn't bring others with him. He could elevate him. Yeah,
and so like that was just it. Never really clicked at the highest level. Where Oral Roberts, he could be a star. Here, it just never fully clicked. And so that was kind of an issue going on, and Dylan DeSue had to take over in games more than Max A. Smith did. So you lose two guys that could do that, but you're putting in a lot of pieces. And Trey Johnson, that is a big one. If he can come out and do it early in the season too, that'll give you a lot of hope that there's still room to grow to get even better.
Yeah, no, that's a good point there. All right, you won't get a better breakdown than that. I got a couple of more questions for Patrick about Texas basketball. We'll ask those as the show goes on. We come back, we get into Rod's rant, and we'll talk about those coaches who had some tantrums. I think the pressure's starting to get to some of these guys. We'll get into that, talk some college football on the other side, all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. And I'm sure that Tom Herman actually probably was ranting about the post-game handshake that he had when he got big timed by Alex Golish. So there's a background here for those who didn't know it. Okay, so do we have the audio actually of the post-game handshake? I believe we have that too. The broadcast audio of the post-game handshake between Alex Golish and Tom Herman. Now, basically last season is when this goes back to last season. Just for those who don't know, and this year the USF Bulls they beat I think the FAU Owls. They beat them 44-21. So it was just an Old Testament style butt whipping they put on them. And at one point it was 42-21, and USF went for a 2-point conversion instead of kicking the field goal. So Tom Herman thought of that as being really disrespectful. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, the really sized butt is the year before, Tom Herman did something basically very similar to what he did. There was a Florida Atlantic had a 56-14 lead in 2023, and they're rivals, by the way, USF, and well, they're supposed to be Florida Atlantic. They're rivals. And Tom Herman's team had a 56-14 win over South Florida that year, and they went for an onside kick late in the game when they were up by 42 points. They had a 42-point lead and tried an onside kick, and it was USF's homecoming. And that Golish was not happy about it. Like, he was obviously so. So do we have the audio here, Patrick, of the broadcast, please, of the post-game handshake between Tom Herman and Alex Golish, the USF head coach? Here it is.
South Florida trailed at the half. They end up scoring the game's final 30 points. They run for more than 300 yards. The defense ties a school record with 7 sacks. And Tom Herman and Alex Golish getting into it as they're coming off the field.
That is the definition of a rivalry right there.
Yeah, that's a rivalry, folks.
We're getting into it so much as Golish, the post-game handshake, which happens, all right, after a football game between the two head coaches, he pretty much big times him. He does the first one. He does the gesture where, remember, you bring your hand up really high, like almost to shoulder height, to like rev up to shake somebody's hand. He did that, like almost like, and then he did it real quick, and you can tell kind of quick and aggressive, and then it was done. It did not have any conversation with Tom Herman. There was no exchange, usually there's an exchange of something like, hey, good game, great job, coach. Hey, your team's getting good. Pat each other on the shoulder, move on. None of that. He went in for the handshake, didn't even look him in the eye, and didn't say anything, and walked right past him. And I guess Tom Herman felt a certain kind of way about that, and he went after him. Like, he tracked him down and wanted to know, hey, man, why did you just big time me, pretty much? Why did you big time me? And he didn't talk to Tom Herman. At one point, you could see him shaking his head, nodding no. And he didn't say anything to him. He looked up and just kind of nodded no and was like, no, I'm not even going to talk to you. And then Tom Herman's wife, Michelle, the lovely Michelle, she had to come pretty much grab her husband and come, subdue him, get him, corral him, and, talk him down. She had to talk. It was the wife he had to talk him down. None of the coaches could do it. Wifey had to do it. But we all remember that Tom Herman. We remember that guy. Conduct unbecoming of a head coach. That's in a nutshell. That is Tom Herman. I always thought Tom Herman had a good coach somewhere in him, but I don't know if the Mensa meathead can ever be overcome in Tom Herman. There's a Mensa meathead that he believes he's always smarter and he's always right, even when, like, this is a thing where the tables were turned, right? He did the same thing to this coach last year, and then the coach did it to him, and now I guess he felt a certain kind of way about it. So, but Tom Herman, you did the same thing.
Yeah, no, he just wanted to have the last word still.
Yeah, accept the L. Just take the L. They'd be like, no, but he didn't want to do that. Tom Herman, once again, there's a viral video of Tom Herman conduct unbecoming of a head coach, going on the field, going after Mike Gundy, the double bird. We all remember him, the double bird, him mocking. What was that? What was that? Drew, who was that quarterback? Was that from Missouri? Drew Lock. No, was it Drew Lock? I think it was Drew Lock, actually. Remember the Missouri quarterback that he mocks that got the bag, whatever? I believe that's him. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was. Either way, there's too many examples of that of Tom Herman. He should have learned the lesson by now. It's cool to have one or two of those. We're all human. Sark's got one of those. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about on camera.
Yeah.
All right. Sark's got his own demons that he had to overcome, like we all do. But he had one on camera. Remember the Alamo Bowl when he's going off on the officials? Like, I'm sure Sark's seen it and was like, oh, man. Okay, I got to conduct myself better in public than that. That's conduct unbecoming of a head coach at Texas. Tom Herman still ain't learned the lesson.
Nope.
Still doing stuff, crazy stuff. It's like, Tom, come on, man. Take the L. It's okay. All right. He didn't want to take the L. Can we hear from Alex Golish in the post game? Him talking about the post game interaction between him and Tom Herman?
Not a whole lot of back and forth. Nothing really. Just, I said a year ago, we would be back to get it, and we came back to get it. Whatever's said is said. I'm good. I think it was said that we recruit against each other. I think it, said we don't like each other. I got a lot of respect for the staff. I think they do a really good job. I don't specifically think we recruit against each other. At least I can't think of a guy that we had to go beat them on. We certainly run into them. Got a lot of respect for a lot of those guys. But I said we were coming back to get it. Last year at the end of the game, we got embarrassed at home. We came and got it. And we'll continue to do so.
And we came and got it. You can tell he doesn't like Tom Herman, and honestly, he ain't the only one that don't like Tom Herman.
I do think, like, I'll be fair to Tom Herman too. It was also a Bush League move to run up the score and then not talk to him at the end of the game. Like, yes. That's also a Bush League move. Like, look, you can run up the score, but then go be a man and talk to him in his face and be like, no, y'all did this last year. I told you I was coming to get you. I got you.
Gotcha.
And then you say that, and Tom Herman would get mad, whatever, and you can walk off. But don't big time him at the end of it, too, where you're like, you basically know you're like, that's like picking a fight with somebody and then walking away because you're like, oh no, I'm gonna get beat up for this one. All right, trash talking someone, then trying to run out the arena before they get you. Like, so
you were justified in it. So say why you did it.
You're fine. Yeah, you're fine. He ran the score on you. You ran the score on him. You're both Florida teams. Go after it. I'm fine with it. Yep. But yeah, the big time was more of, you're like, all right, both you were in the wrong on this one. Somehow you both came off looking poorly.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. You probably should just be like, yeah, coach, hey, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Is that a thing? Just bring up another old school reference here. I don't even know what the goose and the gander is. Anyway, but the Owls dropped to 2-6 with that, but also Tom Herman's team is not doing well right now. Anyway, okay, so the other story I wanted to bring up here, I saw Kirby Smart there's video of it too. He was pumping his players up before the game, and he was pumping them up by slapping them, like just slapping them on their helmets, like slapping them across the face mask of the helmet. And I was like, man, that's aggressive. These days, I'm sure coaches do it, but usually you don't see coaches do it on the field, the sideline on the field. But man, that was aggressive. I was like, man, but he was stressed because they were down to Florida at the time. Remember, they were losing to Florida for like most of the first half. I think Kirby was like, oh, hell no. If I got to slap some players, we're going to slap some players. I don't give a damn. I'm doing it. Coaches getting stressed out. And then there's another video of a ULM coach. I don't know if you guys saw this. Is their offensive line coach, Cameron Blankenship. He spiked his headset and shoved a player and had to be separated from a player who was basically late leaving the field. And so he just had a full-on tantrum. Like I said, threw the headset, spiked the headset, went over and started shoving the player. Like two players had to come in and separate him from the player. I'm talking about almost like a Woody Hayes situation. I mean, it was ugly. Like and it was their offensive line coach. They've apologized for it since because it was a clip that went viral. They ended up losing that game too to I believe it was at Marshall, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, ULM, which is a former Texas team that Texas played actually on the schedule, who were having a good year, and I think now they're like maybe 5-2 or 6-5, 6-3 or something like that. But either way, he had to apologize. Stress getting to him too as a coach. And I think we saw, like I said, a couple of these end up playing out on the field. And James Franklin, who, once again, James Franklin ends up losing a big game. Told you guys, that's just James Franklin is a good coach, but he's not a big game coach. 1-7 now against top 10 teams at home. when he's at Penn State. 1-9 against top 5 teams. 1-10 against Ohio State as the Penn State head coach. Just not a good.
I think you added in the fact of how now NIL. You've always had to deal with donors and talk to donors, but I think now you really, really have to grease the wheels. Yeah. And when you're trying to talk, and you're just like, every game now, I get a text and a call from every one of these dudes telling me why I suck. Yeah, every game.
And I bought that player. So what's going on? I paid for that player to be.
Hey, wait, why'd you run that one play? I don't know.
No, James Franklin had an interaction with a fan, which is never a good thing, where he asked the fan said something to him that he thought was inappropriate. He asked for the fan's name repeatedly. Fan did not reveal his name, of course. Fan walked away, and then he's basically James Franklin's like, put your name on it. If you want to say something, at least tell me your name. It was a student. That's why I think the student didn't want to tell him his name and don't tell him what James Franklin would do with that information about a student. It probably got some student code, some honor code or something he probably would have violated by saying it. But either way,
it's Penn State. I heard the coaches don't do much about the student actions. Penn State.
Yeah.
They don't report much over there, Penn State.
Yeah. Too soon? Nah, maybe too soon. All right, we'll come back. We got what the facts, what the stats on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for What the Facts, What the Stats right here on the show. Couple of factoids and stats that I want to get to here. How about this one? Well, this is an ugly one. Actually, this is actually a cool one, but it says a lot about college football. Closing line underdogs in week 10 won in FBS games in week 10. Closing line underdogs won 19 of 48 FBS versus FBS games in week 10. 39%. The highest percentage of upsets in a full regular season week of games since week 9 of 2018, where the underdogs won 41% of the games that week. So damn near 40% of the underdogs in FBS versus FBS games in week 10 ended up winning. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's so you had one of the basically the weekend with the most upsets in the last 6 years in college football. Says a lot about, the parity in college football right now. We were supposed to have a separation really of the have and have nots with transfer portal, with NIL. Seems like you've actually ended up having, a little bit more parity this year than we expected. There's no juggernaut really in college football right now. It's a perfect year for the Longhorns to ascend and kind of take the throne of college football, because there is no dominant team that includes the Longhorns. Longhorns have been as dominant as any other team in college football right now. They don't have a perfect record, but in terms of the way they've played and the manner in which they've won. All right, another factoid here. What the stats? Oh, this is actually sad fact. Quincy Jones died last night at 91 years old. That's a sad fact. So Quincy Jones passed away at 91, the music legend. So I'm sure I don't know, for some reason I feel like Patrick's going to have a music themed day dedicated somehow to Quincy Jones. I don't know which one of them, or at least some songs on maybe our top, top
there might be one. Quincy. There might be one queued up for next hour. I don't know.
Okay, exactly. I don't even know how, but I guarantee you, Patrick's already getting it done. So we appreciate Patrick, but also appreciate our man CB, because he threw that out there too as well. Chris GB 0002000. Thank you for that, CB. The Quincy Jones passed away at 91 years old. That's the other factoid for you. A somber one. How about this one? The Raiders. Man, I didn't even realize the Raiders are a clean house already. It ain't Black Monday, but they're already firing coaches. The Raiders fired their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, their offensive line coach, James Craig, and their quarterbacks coach, Rich Scangarello. All gone. So, man,
what do you think?
They're not wasting any time.
You think Tom Brady, new ownership came in?
I didn't even link the two. I haven't even linked that, but maybe you're right about that, brother. You might be right.
If you're talking about offense, he may have been like, hey, come in. Now, granted, I don't know. They should have asked him, like, hey, Tom, so you get that your old OC was garbage, right? Like the worst coach in possibly NFL history, but definitely Raiders history right now. It was bad. We've had some bad coaches, and he's just really like destroyed our franchise bad.
Yeah.
No, just want to make sure we're on the same page that he was bad, Tom. If you want to bring in a guy like him, we need to talk about that now.
No, I think you're right, though. I like your theory that because it's all offensive. So Tom can easily go and go, oh, guys, this ain't going to work. All of this is a mess.
Yeah.
Like, trust me,
so show me
offense.
Since I can't,
all of this is a mess.
Since I can't see all the other teams' notes and stuff, let me see these. Let's see what we're running in the offense. Garbage.
Yep, pretty much. And I can tell you right now, none of it's going to work. And they go, okay, we trust Tom. It's a good point. No, this is the fourth time in 5 seasons the Raiders have changed coaches or coordinators in the middle of the season.
Not good.
Not good. Raiders in their final 5 games under Luke Getsy, the OC, they had 4 touchdowns on 5 opening drives. That was good. But here's the bad. 4 touchdowns on 50 other drives. 3 of those 4 touchdowns came in the final 5 minutes when the Raiders were down 20-plus points. So only 1 touchdown in 50 drives where they were actually in the game, in a competitive game. The Raiders ranks under Luke Getsy, yards per play, 29th at 4.6. Turnovers, they were last in the NFL in turnovers. They had 19, the most under Luke Getsy in the NFL. Offensive points per game, they were 26th, averaging a little under 18 points per game. Yards per carry, they were dead last in the NFL in yards per carry under Luke Getsy, 3.4. And passer rating under Luke Getsy, 27th and an 80 passer rating. So, yeah, whatever the Raiders were doing, it wasn't working. offensively. And now you probably got a GOAT in there and Tom Brady that can tell you about that. I like your
Let's put it this
theory
way.
on that,
I would have at
Patrick.
least called Tom Brady. If I'm selling
like it.
him part of my franchise for a undervalued piece, I'm at least using his brain.
Yeah, your football brain. Yeah, I mean, that's the bare minimum that you can provide here and help us out with. Can you just provide football knowledge to people at that level? Hell yeah, you can. I'm with you. I think you're right because it's all offensive too. I haven't looked at the Raiders defense, but sometimes the Raiders defense ain't great. But their coach is a defensive coach, so that's his expertise. Probably like, hey, I got this. I need some help on offense though. And Tom's probably the most qualified person there to provide advice and counsel on offense in that organization right now. All right, another factoid here. One more before we go to break. There have now been 100 made field goals this season in the NFL from 50-plus yards. That's the 7th most all time for any season. So they've already, just through halfway through the season, we've already had the 7th most 50-plus field goals all time in any season in NFL history. 158 is the record. That was in 2023. 154 is the second most in 2022. You get this right. 120 in 2021. So the last 3 years, your 50-plus yard field goal rate, or at least the rate of made 50-plus yard field goals, has increased exponentially. You were at 104 in 2015, 106 in 104 in 2015. You were at 106 in just 2020. What the hell happened between 2020 and 2021? Then you went to 120. You went from 106 to 120 in 2021, and then you went from 120 to 154 in 2022. And a slight increase in 2023. But you're about to go from 2023. You're on pace. Hell, you're on pace for damn near 200.
Wait, did the vaccines make us better kickers?
I don't know. That's a great question. Like, what happened? What happened in that? That's a hell of a increase, right? That's crazy. Something must have happened. We got to go do some research on that. All right, there you go. That's what the stats. Got a bunch of those. All right, we come back. We'll unfortunately got to talk about some ugly stats from the Dallas Cowboys loss to the Atlanta Falcons. What the hell's going on with the Cowboys? We'll dive into what are the long-term solutions for the Cowboys, because it looks like short-term there's not going to be a happy ending to the 2024 season. We'll discuss it and dive into it, all that more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth Monday edition of the Rodcast. Thanks to my co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, who comes up with all of our musically themed days of the week. And a smooth Monday is always about making sure we soothe the tortured soul of sports fans out there who may have had a tough weekend. Speaking of, we'll talk about Cowboys fans here in just a second. We'll hear from Jerry Jones, but also the purpose of Smooth Monday is to make sure it's a smooth transition from the relaxing, fun-filled, stress-free weekend to the hectic, very hectic and stressful work week, which oftentimes is filled with traffic and adulting and meetings. That can be pretty traumatic for you. So in order to make it an easy, smooth transition, my man Patrick comes up with a Smooth Monday. So appreciate his efforts there.
Little, Quincy Jones there for you too.
This is Quincy Jones?
Yes. Patty Austin singing, but it's Quincy Jones.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I was like, it's Quincy Jones, right? Quincy Jones, man, passed away at 91 years old last night. The music legend, Quincy Jones. That's a lot of great Quincy Jones stories out there that I'm sure will be starting to be told. A lot of them probably that weren't able to be told while he was still alive, that you'll be hearing a lot of. But man, hard to think of many people who had, not many people had bigger influences on music, period, than Quincy Jones. I mean, he's in that conversation. It's one of the people that, in a lot of different ways, 91 years, and I think he was still influential in music, like later in his life. It's not like he was not influential later in his life. You talk about decades of influence on music. That's crazy. 40 years of influence, 40, 50 years of influence on music. That's unbelievable. At a really high level too. So Quincy Jones, one of the GOATs, passing away. Because I'm sure Patrick is gonna something. He already did it. I knew he was gonna weave it into the musically themed days of the week, but I'm sure that ain't the last time we're gonna get a little bit of Quincy Jones. But let's also thank Patrick for his efforts hooking us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horns X account at the Horn ATX. Go check it out for yourself. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Topic for the big fat poll today: which player are you most excited to see debut for the Longhorns tonight? We gave you four options: Trey Johnson, Jordan Pope, Tramon Mark, and Arthur Kaluma. Right now, Trey Johnson, of course, winning it with 70% of the vote. Jordan Pope getting 17%, Mark getting 8%, and Kaluma getting 4%. But yeah, Trey Johnson, freshman phenom. Anytime you have those freshmen that are supposed to be one and dones, guys that are expected to be top picks in the draft, that's who people are normally going to be very excited to come see out and play. I'm excited to see what Trey Johnson. I'm excited to see all the guys, but Trey Johnson, of course, because we just haven't seen him play at a college level yet. So see what he can do.
I'm with you. It's really exciting because to have a guy like that who could potentially be a lottery pick, right? He's in that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, Trey, we know Cooper Flagg is 95% odds to be the number one overall pick next season. He's at Duke. He's right now, and the stories you're hearing about him that he was playing with like college kids at 13. Like he was that good at like 13. He was able to go and play, and college kids were like, wow, this guy's. He's like, oh, he's gonna be a problem. So that guy he went and played with the Dream with the Olympic team this year, and the Olympic team was talking about how good he was, and that's him coming out of high school, playing with the best players in the NBA, and they were raving about him. So he's 99% your number one overall pick. But that number 2 spot, that's open.
Still open.
And so yes, he could fall into that where he falls in that number 2 or number 3. Any of those, you can get put in that. Sometimes these guys come out and they exceed. Kevin Durant, when he came in, was not supposed to be the number 1 overall pick. And it wasn't the number 1 overall pick, but he wasn't supposed to be. He's clearly the best player of that draft class now. But but I believe Greg Oden was also the one, and that's they went with the center instead. I believe, if I remember correctly. But Kevin Durant, you saw him, and he, you just immediately were blown away of how good this player was. Trey Johnson, has that upside to him, but you just see if he can put it all together.
Yeah, no, it's exciting for Roddy Terry and for Texas basketball fans. Tonight should be a good test too, as you mentioned. Ohio State, probably right outside being ranked. You said top 30, top 35 team in the country, somewhere around there.
So yeah, they're within like 10 of the 10. Yeah. They're within like 10, 15 rankings of the Longhorns, and it's early, so we just don't know what any of these teams are really going to look like, and how you spend all off season it's so important to do that. Culture building. It's a little easier to do culture building in basketball because there's fewer players. But at the same part, you're like, you have to build these teams and their chemistry up as much as you can in that offseason window, because when you get out on the court, you have to be ready to go game one against Ohio State. And you haven't played a lot together. You haven't ever played in a real game with pretty much anyone else you're going to be on the court with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like I said, we've talked about that's the new way of college basketball. You have to adapt to that being your model pretty much year to year, and the exception to the rule being, oh no, we've got multiple leaders who've been playing roles in this program for 2-3 years. That's just not the new era of college basketball with the transfer portal with NIL. All right, thank you, Patrick, for the topic for the big fat poll of the day. Let's also get into the Horn headlines, and then we'll come back and discuss the Dallas Cowboys and all the drama with the Dallas Cowboys right now. Injury to insult with Dak Prescott now dealing with a hamstring injury. CeeDee Lamb got nicked up in that game as well. But honestly, the injuries to Dak and his CD might be the least of your problems right now if you're a Cowboys fan at 3-5 and a 27-21 loss to Atlanta. We'll come back and discuss it, but first, let's get educated, let's get updated, and let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs beat the Timberwolves on Saturday night, 113-103. 5 Spurs scored in double digits, and Chris Paul racked up 13 assists. The Rockets came back from down 31 to force overtime against the Warriors, but still lost 127-121, with Tari Eason leading the way off the bench with 27 points. And the Mavericks took down the Magic 108-85, holding Orlando to just 33% shooting for the game. Tonight, the Spurs face the Clippers, the Rockets take on the Knicks, and the Mavericks are up against the Pacers. In college football, 7 top 25 teams took a loss on Saturday, with most notably Ohio State beating Penn State 20-13, Louisville knocking off Clemson 33-21, and South Carolina giving Texas A&M their first loss in conference play with a 44-20 win. Texas moves up to number 5 in this week's poll. In the NFL, the Cowboys took a hard loss to the Falcons 27-21, with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb both being injured in the game. Also around the league, the Lions got a 24-14 win over the Packers, and the Vikings got back on track with a 21-13 win over the Joe Flacco-led Colts. Tonight, the Buccaneers head to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. And in college basketball, Texas begins their season tonight as the number 19 team in the country, taking on Ohio State in Las Vegas for the Hall of Fame series. 18 top 25 teams are in action tonight, kicking off the season with number 8 Baylor versus number 6 Gonzaga headlining your night. And that is your Horn headlines.
Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. And man, obviously one of the more disappointing headlines, definitely for Cowboys fans, that the Cowboys lost 27-21. Score would lead you to believe that the game was closer than it actually was. Atlanta controlled this game from start to finish. Started out actually controlling with Bijan. I believe they went to him with 13 times in the first 18 plays, just hammering Bijan in a lot of different ways, by the way. I think he ended up having 145 yards from scrimmage, so good game for Bijan. But, man, it didn't really matter. I mean, they lost Drake London. They lost Grady Jarrett. They lost some of their key pieces, but Atlanta really put it on the Dallas Cowboys. Kirk Cousins had a great game. He was 19 of 24, 222 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did not have a single touchdown while under pressure from weeks 1 through 7. But in this game, I believe he had 2 of those touchdowns while under pressure from the Cowboys. But that wasn't the big story. The Cowboys were, pretty much dominated in this game, but that wasn't the big story. The big story was that Dak Prescott ended up leaving the game actually in the fourth quarter. He left with a hamstring injury. He was dealing with a hand injury that he was battling throughout the game, but then the hamstring injury on one of his throws in the fourth quarter, it was severe enough for him to have to leave the game. He did not return. Cooper Rush came into the game with the Cowboys trailing 27-13. Ended up scoring again, like I said, to make it a 1-score game, but it was all she wrote. Now the Cowboys are 3-5, and I gotta tell you right now, I don't see that. I don't see that hamstring. I don't see them rushing him back from that hamstring injury. So if that's going to be the case, then he's going to be out for the Philadelphia game we got coming up next. I believe you're a 6.5-point underdog for that game. I believe you're probably going to be an underdog for the Texans game. You're not going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles or the Texans. Texans got a lot of issues, but I don't think you're going to beat them either without Dak Prescott. And that's going to put the Cowboys at 3-6, 3-7, and then you're out of it. So mathematically, now you're still in it. But if Dak's not going to play, which we all assume he's not for the next 2-3 games while the hamstring injury heals up, you're going to lose 2 of the next 3 games. You could lose all 3 of your next 3 games, and then that means you're out of it, and your season is done. So essentially right now, the reality is the Cowboys season is probably over. And now you're actually closer to tanking than you are to competing for any type of championship this year or even competing to win the division. And so a trade to make you a contender this season is off the table. Any trades you make now are actually going to be trades to put you in a better draft position for the future. And that, unfortunately, for Cowboys fans, that's your reality, is that I'm not saying you go full on tanking, but you still can't compete. But that you're closer now to looking at the draft as your that is your plan now, your plan B, because plan A was, hey, compete for a championship this season. That's not happening. So plan B is Cowboys making moves for the future, for the upcoming draft. And right now, I think you're 11th, right? 11th or 12th in draft position. You lose a couple more games, you could easily be, in the top 10, drafting in the top 10. I think that's where the Cowboys, unfortunately, that's the reality of where they are right now. You don't stand a chance of competing right now. So
and you talk about the CeeDee Lamb injury, which a best case scenario, if it is an AC joint in that shoulder, is at minimum like 1 to 2 weeks to get him back and healthy. Dak Prescott hamstrings usually 3 weeks minimum. We also talk about the hand, and that was supposed to be injured before the hamstring was injured. Micah Parsons hasn't still come back. Was Micah Parsons going to be able to be there? Jerron Bland had that setback coming back. We know Trayvon Diggs played the whole game, but he was injured that whole game as well with a calf injury. It's not just one. It just seems like everything right now is kind of piling up on top of each other. That it's injury after injury across all of your star players, and this is not a team with a ton of depth. Overshawn was leaving at the end of the game. He got banged up at the end of that game as one of your, players that was doing pretty well and coming up for you. I mean, Lawrence, we know, is still out. You just really, really beat up right now. And then you throw in the fact that it doesn't feel like, I'll give credit. CeeDee Lamb trying to stay in that game when he's hurt and then takes another fall on that shoulder. And you just had to pull him out at that point. I know you were trying to salvage your season. You're trying to salvage anything to win that game. But it just kept getting worse. Credit to Trayvon Diggs for gutting it out and trying to stay out there on the field. There was plays where they just went to hurry up for the Falcons because they knew Diggs was having trouble getting back to the line. They were going to try and attack him. But he was trying to stay out there. So they were gunning it out. But it feels like, especially this offense is not really playing for Mike McCarthy the same way they need to be, and focus they need to be. The whole roster isn't. And it doesn't feel like this defense necessarily as a whole is playing for Mike Zimmer the way they were playing for Dan Quinn last year, where they did have some clear games where they were wildly outmatched on the defensive end, game plan wise. But at least they were putting out a better effort. And that Zeke story that came out before the game of him not being there feels like it's just a piece of what's wrong with that team. And you can kind of look at it and say, this right here, when you can have a player that reportedly consistently was showing up late and then just missed meetings, flat out missed them. And when you hear that, you go, wait, how is he still the guy? How is he still thought of as like being important? How is he still have his job? He's not producing, and he now seems to be a detriment on the other end, but it's Jerry's boy, so he's okay. And if that's the case, then why is anybody else going to show up and put out, 10 times the effort they need to put out to go compete in the NFL right now? Because it can be everybody else's fault.
The reason that the Zeke story is, it's disappointing for a lot of reasons. Zane Slater did report, as you said, that he's been distracted. He's been habitually tardy, which, I mean, that basically means he's tardy like multiple times a week. If he's habitually tardy, and then he's missed 3 team meetings. So just flat out didn't show up for a few meetings, but habitually tardy all the time. In NFL, trust me, I went to some NFL meetings in my time. You're supposed to be early. They preach you actually showing up early rather than being on time or being never, ever be late. But different rules apply. But the reason this really disappoints because I remember saying, I don't know, maybe after week 2 or 3, I said they got to give the running game to Rico Dowdle because he's your best option. Right? He's the best option. I'm not saying that it would be my first option, Rico Dowdle, to be the lead back in my running back by committee. But I was like, he gives you the best chance to win. He gives you the best chance to break some explosive plays. He's your best option at running back. While they were still, even with all this going on behind the scenes, still giving Zeke, who was not giving you any return on that investment, obviously. And we thought, oh, he's a guy that's being a locker room guy. He's going to be a culture guy, teach the young guys how to be a professional. He's a good vibe guy. Everybody loves Zeke. Zeke puts everybody in a good mood. And turns out he was toxic for the culture, that he was setting a bad example for the young guys on the team. But other than that, if we're just talking about football-wise, Rico Dowdle, I'll give you some Rico Dowdle numbers after, because he ended up having a good game. The Cowboys' run game actually was the only thing in that matchup against the Falcons of any type of redeeming quality was the Cowboys' run game. They ran for 137 yards on the ground. They averaged 6.5 yards per rush. And I think a lot of the successes that started to see on the ground is because, first of all, Falcons' rush defense is not great. That helps. But also that Rico Dowdle, I think, was their best option, and they're starting to showcase that. So he's got, through 9 weeks, he's got 71 attempts, he's at 4.5 yards per carry, which is not elite by any stretch, so I'm not saying that. But look at his success rate. He's at 56.3 success rate. His success rate is actually one of the highest success rates of running backs in the league. It looks like he's in the top 10 in success rate for running backs. So my point is the Cowboys, even with Zeke behind the scenes, now that we know, was adding to the dysfunctional culture of the Cowboys. They still were rewarding him with carries, even when he wasn't the best option at running back. What's the reason for that? Yeah. He's not the best option on the field, and he was not giving you you wanted the added value behind the scenes of being a locker room guy and a glue guy and being a great kind of culture warrior for you. You didn't get any of that. So he was bad, but the example that you wanted him to set, and bad on the field in terms of productivity. Jerry just paid him because he liked him.
Yeah, and he gets him snap. And Mike McCarthy's allowing it to happen. And so I get it may not be your call, but at some point make it your call, because at least Mike McCarthy can walk out of there and go, no, man, I stuck up for what I thought was right, and I was fired because Jerry Jones is a crazy old man who doesn't want to let me coach a football team. And everybody go, you know what, Mike? You did a pretty good job coaching that team, even though Jerry put you down and didn't let. But if you're going to be such a pushover that you allow this stuff to happen, why do you expect people to show up and want to play for you? Why do you expect guys to, be all in? Because you can't be, you just can't have that amount of lack of accountability and still give guys playing time and then tell another player why he's not getting on the field.
Crazy, man.
Like, all I got to do is go kiss up to Jerry Jones. That's all I got to do.
Yeah. There's no real chain of command. I don't
have to practice. I don't have to be that much better or anything else. I just know when Jerry shows up, practice hard. Jerry walks away, loaf around all I want.
Oh, I go crack jokes with Jerry. Once I go there and crack a couple of jokes with Jerry, I'm good. It's great because, like I said, I thought he's not giving you what you want on the field, but I said behind the scenes, that's not why they signed Zeke. They signed Zeke for other kind of added value reasons. And when he wasn't giving you that, you should have cut Zeke. Yes. And that's what
should have made an example.
Yeah, he should. Exactly. You should have cut Zeke. And that's what Cowboys fans want right now. I think Bobby Bill has a poll up asking, shall the Cowboys fans release Zeke? 91% of 2,900 people who took this survey said they should cut Zeke.
I mean, let's just be clear. They didn't fine him or suspend him for the game. They just made a mutual decision to not have him travel with the team.
Pretty much.
Hey, no-showed for us 3 times. you know what? Probably in both our best interest. If you take your terrible attitude and your lack of responsibility and leadership, and you just don't bring it with us on the road. But we go back to Dallas, you'll still be there smiling, laughing. You'll probably be pretty rested up. I mean, maybe you'll party too hard that weekend again, but you'll be ready to go raring on a Monday morning. We're all coming back beat up and battered and bruised. How do you have that in your locker room and expect people to take it seriously?
That's why you have the worst running back room in the NFL because of the culture and because of the talent and personnel.
We work in an office, and if it's like the boss's son or the boss's daughter or somebody like that, and you just have that, or even just a boss's favorite person, and you're like, man, I'm doing 3 times the amount of work as that person, and they're coming in laughing and joking. It drives you nuts. Doesn't make you want to work harder because we go, I can never, and then they get the promotion, and that's what it feels like's happening with Zeke right now. That he's getting put in those situations. I mean, if you're Dalvin Cook, do you feel like, man, I came on this practice squad, I can't even get elevated to the main roster because this dude, and I get I'm not playing well, but at the same part, I'm showing up. That should be half of it.
There's no accountability at the top of the Cowboys chain of command, which is Jerry. So nobody really takes accountability. There's no culture of accountability with the team, period. And that's why I go look at the most pre-snap penalties per game. Cowboys in the top 5. They're in the top 5 with Cleveland and Chicago. You know what I mean? Just undisciplined organizations. That's the Cowboys in that show. And that's on Mike McCarthy, by the way. And not all of this is Mike McCarthy's fault, but it is his responsibility. Yep. And so it's on him too. And so the Cowboys will be looking for a new coach. We all knew that was going to be the case, but we thought it would be under different circumstances. Cowboys got to figure out who they want the coach of the future to be for the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, I think these coaches are going to have to figure out who's actually going to go there. Who's going to go there when you say I have zero control over player personnel, which is clear because Mike McCarthy does not have any control whatsoever about who he's getting, or he would have got a running back. I don't think he's that dumb that he would have got a running back. You would say, Jerry, what do you say? Get somebody. And so, I mean, I don't know who you're getting in there. I mean, we saw Dan Quinn at least got some of his players. He was able to go up there and talk to Jerry and get it done. But Mike Zimmer maybe got a couple guys, but he really got bottom of the barrel guys.
No, Zimmer's defense is, it's structurally, schematically flawed. The guys, they don't make adjustments. They're not situationally aware. So the guys aren't being coached very well, but the defense itself it doesn't have enough solutions built into it. There was a play, Dan Orlovsky brought it up and somebody tweeted to me where they go empty formation and they go Bijan Robinson goes in motion across the formation. The Cowboys, they end up outnumbered 3-4 on one side of formation, and they don't bump, and then they just it was a 3rd and 4, and Bijan catches the ball on a flare route from the jet sweep motion and just picks up the first down pretty easy because they have 4 guys on the Cowboys, 3 defenders. They had 3 blockers on 3, and there was nobody that bumped over to take Bijan. And structurally, you're thinking, well, how is there no solution baked into the defense where you would have the numbers shift over? That doesn't even make sense. That's basic, football stuff. That stuff happens in high school.
Yeah.
And so I don't know and I saw another Kurt Warner saying something he's never saw from the Cowboys. He actually saw their right guard because it's customary for the center to look between his legs to make sure that he and the quarterback are aligned. And he said he saw the guard doing it. Now, the center can do it because the center knows when the ball is being snapped. So the center won't be late because he's snapping the ball.
Yeah.
So he'll be able to react quicker than anybody else, even though at times he's looking through his legs to snap. He's looking through his legs at times. But the right guard was looking through his legs at the quarterback and ended up being late.
Well, that's Zach Martin,
at the
isn't
snap. It was weird. It was strange. He said it too. I couldn't believe it. That's very weird. I've never seen that before either. But you're just seeing weird stuff from the Cowboys. It just shows that they're not being coached very well, at all. And Zach Martin. Zach Martin's not playing great right now either. Actually,
no.
The only person on the O line that's playing really well actually is Tyler Smith.
Yeah. No, I mean,
on
and
that
that's what I'm
O-line.
saying. The veterans on this team, it doesn't feel like they have any, like they don't. It just doesn't feel like they're motivated to be leaders, or I don't know what it is, but it feels like it has become a big problem on this Cowboys team that just kind of has spiraled in the last few weeks. That it
Yeah.
was always there, and then, but they were winning enough that it never really reared its head that bad, and now it's just over the top rearing its head, and it basically is where, if you take away the injuries, this team can still compete. But if you say you're out your three best players and CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, and Micah Parsons right now, all three are injured. Micah may be able to come back this week, but you're all injured, and then Trayvon Diggs is beat up. Deron Bland still hasn't come back. He's another one of your better players. Was a defensive player of the year, finished in the voting. We didn't know what he was going to look like, but he still hasn't come back. You don't have a running back. I mean, once Brandon Cooks has been out. So once you get through, so at the end of that game, and I get like Cooper Rush for what he had, I know there's a pass he threw to Turpin, and the guy just knocked it out of Turpin's hand because he was not a big enough player. Like one of those things where you're like, well, that's why you don't have small players on the field all the time. And then if you do, you try and throw them in space where they're not having to make contested catches. That's not what Turpin's specialty is.
Oh yeah, but the depth at wide receiver for the Cowboys is also being exposed, or lack thereof, I should say.
Because your top two wide receivers were out of that game.
Yeah,
it's just there's not the pieces when you start to take away. Say this team is right on the edge of being, a playoff team, could win a game or not, right there on that edge. To now, well, half your roster's hurt and you have no depth.
None. And that's why they got Dak on the sideline mouthing, "We effing suck." And that's a like I said, that's a moment of honesty when he was keeping it real, because he did not think the camera was on him. He probably should know that they're always on him. But yeah, that was, I agree with you. I remember Sark had that moment at Arkansas.
Yep.
His first year in Texas. And he, in the moment, he was like, man, we're really freaking bad. We're bad. And that's no doubt. When the quarterback or the head coach has that mindset about his team after evaluating. Remember, at one point, Dak was saying, if you don't want to be on the bandwagon and you want off, get off. You have to get off the bandwagon. Now Dak has come to the conclusion, yeah, we suck too. We suck. So I think the Cowboys, they need to cut Zeke. Number one, just cut him, because start making decisions about meritocracy, and you can start establishing a better culture in the locker room. Just cut Zeke and be like, nah, we don't stand for that. It's, you got to work your way for reps. You got to do the right thing. You got to be a professional here. You don't have special rules that apply to guys like Zeke just because Jerry Jones likes him. Cut Zeke. Honestly, you should start Trey Lance over Cooper Rush.
Yeah, you got what you want.
Just,
and I get Cooper Rush is a serviceable quarterback. The more you put him in there, the more you expose him. And so it kind of loses his X factor when you keep putting him back out there, because teams will start to game plan for him. And that becomes a problem.
And you need to see what Trey Lance has, because you could potentially, get some trade value there. And Trey Lance is more boom or bust for you. So but right now you're at 3-5. You don't need a steady hand like Cooper Rush. You need a boom or bust situation.
Yep.
That's going to help you better, because if he's terrible, you need to tank anyway. Yep. You know what? Cooper Rush might win a game or two. Cooper Rush might be, it's not a manage a game. Trey Lance is more boom. Now, Trey Lance goes out there and balls out, great. We can trade him. We need the draft capital. But if he busts out, it's fine too, because you need to tank. So I would start Trey Lance instead of Cooper Rush. I'd also consider trading some veteran pieces to some contenders.
Yeah.
And that includes, I don't know what DeMarcus Lawrence's situation is, but guys like that, I know you should consider. I know Zach Martin's an excellent player, is going to be a Hall of Famer. You should see what teams want to pay for a Hall of Fame guard potentially.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've been on board to Deron Bland. I know he's got the injury.
Deron Bland's
you're not re-signing him. Like, I just don't see any way you're paying him what he's going to get. You got the guy's making like $1 million this year. He is on a very small contract, very tradable contract. Now I get to you can't give up Deron Bland for less than the compensatory pick you're going to get for him if he leaves in free agency. So there's some part of this where you don't want to just make a trade to make a trade. So if they're giving you like a fourth or something, you might as well keep him because you'll get at least that back, because he was a defensive.
Yeah.
But if someone gives you a second for him, or a second and a third, or something where you get a good trade value back for him, then then yeah, go ahead. Because what are you keeping him for? He's a rental at this point. You're not using him next year. If he's going to require a lot more money, you're already paying Trayvon Diggs in that secondary. You can't afford to have two guys back there making the money and pay Micah Parsons and pay Dak and pay CD. I mean, we know Jerry doesn't want to spend money anyway.
I'm with you. I agree that you said that a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea. If you get the right draft compensation in return, yeah, do it. I think that's where the Cowboys are now. And I would, start Trey Lance. I would consider where Dak is if Dak Prescott is unable to play, but I don't think Dak Prescott's going to play for a couple of weeks. You don't want to rush a hamstring. You don't.
For
you
what?
Don't play with the hamstring.
Why are you trying to rush him back?
And for what now is the question.
You're going to stick CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, who you just paid all this money for, that are going to be on your team for the next 5 seasons, and you're going to go, let's throw away next year. You know what? Let's throw away the offseason. Let's throw away as much as we can. Let's try and get him hurt real bad. So that let's have lingering. We already see Dak has lingering injuries too.
Well, he's getting old. Yeah, you can tell he hurt himself scrambling. I think you brought up last week. That's why he doesn't scramble, is because he's old. He doesn't look as swift, and he just doesn't look as fluid as he did when he was younger running. He looks like it hurts to run. And everybody who's older understands, like, oh man, it kind of hurts to run. And he hurt himself scrambling. He says, I pulled it scrambling, and then he felt it when he tried to make that throw to the opposite. I think it was the opposite hash he was trying to make that throw to, and he felt it. And it looked like pain on his face. And it looked pretty serious. So I'm with you. I wouldn't rush Dak back. If you're not rushing Dak back, give it to Trey. See what Trey Lance can do. If Trey Lance can't even operate the offense with any type of, competence, then put in Cooper Rush. But see what you got with Trey Lance. It's a perfect opportunity.
And keep in mind, and maybe if Brandon Cooks can come back from injury, I'm guessing his IR stint should be over. I don't know if he'll be healthy or not. Yeah. But if Brandon Cooks comes back, then at least you have somebody out there. But you're like, Trey Lance, let's go out there and try. Turpin's your number one. Get Tolbert and Turpin. Have fun.
Ferguson, Jake, right? Jake Ferguson's your guy. I mean,
there's going to be some limitations in there if CeeDee Lamb's out anyway. But
I agree. I'm with you. Yeah. No, you're right. That is unfair. It's not fair to Trey Lance, but hey, Trey.
It's your shot.
Fair, man.
Yeah.
This is your this is your chance to show us what you got and to show the NFL what you got.
You want to get paid in this offseason? This is it.
Go out there and make some plays, man. All you got to do is shine for like one game, and somebody will be like, you know what? I think he's got something. All right, we come back. We'll talk about the Texas Longhorns and their upcoming matchup versus the Florida Gators. Bad news for the Gators might mean good news for the Longhorns. We'll talk about that and that opening line. It's huge. The Texas Longhorns are 3-touchdown favorite versus the Gators. We'll discuss that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to go behind the burn orange curtain. All right, we got a couple of Texas football stories to get to. The first one, CB sent me this. Thank you, CB. I appreciate that. Bobby Burden, the folks over at On Texas Football at Bobby Burden OTF, says breaking. I'm told that Texas and Notre Dame are expected to sign an agreement to play in 2028 and 2029. Keeping with the Horns and Del Conte's philosophy of scheduling major big-time non-conference opponents for the Longhorns. So that would mean you got Ohio State in 2025 and 2026. You got Michigan in 2027. Remember that return trip from this season. That means you got Notre Dame in 28 and 29. And then we'll see what the SEC schedule holds. Remember, next season you play the exact same schedule. You just flip it. You go home and home. So you'll have that return trip that'll be coming in 2025. But then in 2026, you'll get a new schedule for the SEC. So we'll see what that's like. But Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, nothing but blue bloods in the non-conference schedule for Texas. I like it. I love it, actually, for Longhorn fans. It always promises you a really cool trip or a really cool game, depending on if it's a home game or a trip. It's a really cool trip or a really cool game if you're a college football fan, if you're a Longhorn, one of those. I would say kind of the old school Longhorn fans who can appreciate these historic football programs, historic blue bloods like Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame. Those are bucket list items for a lot of those folks. Yeah. And they never got a chance to do it. I never had an excuse to do it because the Longhorns don't really play them that often. It's really cool that Chris Del Conte has prioritized that. So I know a lot of boosters and donors, and they love taking these trips. Like they plan, these things are being planned now years ahead. And Del Conte gives you the chance to do it because, you're going to play, of course, in the SEC, you're going to play some big time blue bloods, but now the non-con, I love that. With the playoff, it doesn't hurt you. I mean, it's all about whether you are whether you got enough confidence in your program to have those kind of big time matchups, and that your program will be able to recover from them any loss potentially by the end of the season. But yeah, as long as you can make the 12-team playoff, as long as you don't have more than 2 losses, Texas has a really good chance to be in the college football playoff if they have a loss early on the schedule. So I like this CDC, lets them hang pretty much in this scheduling philosophy. Texas is not going to run from those big time games. So there you go. Texas facing Notre Dame in 2028 and 2029. All right, let's get to some Texas-Florida discussion. Bad news for the Florida Gators. This past weekend, I should say, DJ Lagway, who was playing in place of Graham Mertz, who was their starting quarterback, who got hurt and had a season-ending injury. Well, DJ Lagway, I'm not sure if it's season-ending. I don't know if they've confirmed that, but he did have a hamstring injury, or reportedly a hamstring injury, in the second quarter of that Georgia game, severe enough for him to be carted off the field. Usually hamstring injuries, you're not carted off the field, you're helped off the field. They have to cart him off the field, which means that's a bad one. Really bad, probably really high up, and probably pretty severe in terms of exactly how torn it is. Probably go from, strains are different, but I think he tore it. That will be my guess. Like I said, why would you be carted off the field? Like I said, that's a really bad situation. So he's not going to be available either way for the Texas-Florida game. Aiden Warner, who is a walk-on transfer from Yale, he is going to be the starting quarterback for him in that game versus Texas. That's right. And not good for Florida. 7 of 22, 66 yards. He had 1 interception, 0 touchdowns versus Georgia in limited action. He won't fare better versus Texas. He just doesn't have the arm strength to get the football vertically downfield, which means they'll be overly reliant on the run game. And as we know, one-dimensional teams don't do well against Texas. Think Oklahoma, think Michigan. Teams that don't have the threat of a vertical pass, they don't fare well versus the Texas defense, and neither will Florida. So Florida's going to be in trouble there. And you might get their top wide receiver, or at least their most dangerous wide receiver, was out for the game versus Georgia, Eugene Wilson. If he's going to be out again, then Texas probably they don't really have a threat on the outside that Texas will have to game plan around. So Texas will be able to tee off on the Florida running game and on Aiden Warner. So I actually wanted Texas to have some exposure to a DJ Lackway. He has a cannon of an arm, and he is a true dual threat because he's a dangerous, dynamic runner with the football. And just Texas having exposure to that down the stretch, it'll prepare them for Taylon Green of Arkansas, who's another true dual threat, dynamic dual threat quarterback, and of course Marcel Reed, the Aggie starting quarterback, or at least we think he's going to be starting quarterback. It will help you prepare for both of those guys down the stretch. And now, Aiden Warner isn't a dual threat and doesn't pose that kind of problem for Texas. So when you see another dual threat quarterback, you've only seen, one true one. Diego Pavia was going to be true dual threat. I guess Mississippi State threw out there a couple of guys that can run around a little bit. But Texas hadn't seen the type of dual threat athletes at quarterback they're going to see straight down the stretch here. It was going to be 3 out of the 4, but now DJ Lackway's hurt. It'll just be at Auburn, at A&M. And you want to be almost like inoculated, if you will, like, right? You want to be exposed to it already so you can have solutions ready to go, solutions and potential game plans already in place when you go up against these types of quarterbacks. But Texas, based on the Vanderbilt game plan, and Diego Pavia made some plays. Now, he's a really good player, but as a dual threat, when the play breaks down, when you have to improvise, when you have to call outside the lines, that's a different type of structure. I think it's a different type of problem they're going to present to a defense. And I wonder if the Longhorns, I think, of course, they're going to beat Florida, but if they had to go against DJ Lagway, they would have to come up with coping solutions to all of the different ways that he's going to attack you. They won't have to do that with Aiden Warner. They will have to do that when they go on the road to Arkansas to play Taylon Green and when they go on the road to play Marcel Reed. We'll talk about that Aggie team actually, and they're disappointing, lost 24-20 to South Carolina on the road. We'll get to that and get to some of the details about it coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Flipping to the other side of the ball just really quickly. Can Texas run the football on Florida? Because Florida has one of the worst rush defenses in the SEC and one of the worst rush defenses in college football. They're about 88th in their rush defense. And the only teams that Texas has played whose rush defense is worse than their Florida rush defense, I believe, is ULM. And ULM and Mississippi State. And Texas ran for nearly 200 yards and over 200 yards in those two games. Those are probably the most successful rushing games that Texas has had so far this season. So can Texas run the football, or will we continue to see Texas with the extensions of the running game, detached screens, things of that nature? We shall see. Texas could break tendency when they play against Florida, considering where Quinn is, and we got to see about the health of Quinn and the running game and the offensive line. And if I guarantee you, if Florida's been paying attention, I'm sure they have, they will blitz Quinn if they have a chance. They will blitz him. It will be cornerback, boundary cornerback, slot cornerback blitzes. It'll be A-gap blitzes, and there'll be, I guarantee you, a ton of delayed blitzes because Florida's got nothing to lose, and they're just going to gamble and roll the dice and try to make some plays, which is what you learned from watching that Vanderbilt film and learned from watching that Georgia film. Texas has some trouble picking up blitzes. I think you'll see a really high blitz rate from Florida in that matchup too. All right, we come back. We'll go get into off the record. A lot of random off the record stories. We'll talk about some of the craziest, wackiest names in college basketball with college basketball season upon us. Also, we'll dive into NBA beef. Apparently, there's some beef in the NBA. This rapper doesn't like this player. We'll talk about why. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. Lifetime Longhorn Rod Baby's coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into a little off the record here. And with college basketball season starting up tonight, tipping off tonight, someone came up with, I'm not sure, because Patrick, you sent this to me. I'm not sure who actually did the hard work. I'd like to give them credit for it. The all-name team for NCAA D1 men's basketball, the all-name teams. Let's go with some of the honorable mentions first here, which are pretty cool. All right. There is a George Washington. Good for you. George Washington III. There is a Tony, like Tony, like the band.
If his middle name is Tony.
Tony. That's
His
great.
middle name Tony.
That is fantastic. I love that. That is UAB. He's a player for UAB. You got to keep up with these guys. There is Sir Muhammad from Notre Dame. That's pretty cool. Anytime you got Sir's your first name is good. Puff Johnson from Penn State.
Puff Johnson, who threw up in a big game a couple years ago when he was playing for UNC. Threw up on the court.
Oh, did he? Okay, there you go.
When I talk about young guys playing minutes in college basketball, I think he was like 9 minutes into the game and threw up. It was something like he was playing the most minutes he's played, but it was only like 9 or 10. And he's still like, oh, so gassed.
Oh, yeah, maybe he puffs a little too much.
Maybe he puffs a little too much.
Townsend Triple, the forward for BYU, Townsend Triple. Solo Ball is a guard from UConn. That's a pretty damn good basketball name. How about this one? Oakland Fort. He is a guard from Northern Arizona. How is Burger Irving? Is it Burger?
I think it's Burger, but it's a weird name.
Wow, it's B-I-R. Yeah.
Burger
Irving. Yeah. You know what? Hey, you know what? I like it. Burger. He should come on. If he's decent, there's an NIL deal happening for this forward from High Point right there. Legend. Oh, is this Legend Getter?
Getter?
Is it Getter or Getter?
I'm gonna call him Legend Getter.
Legend Getter. It says Geeter.
I know, but I'm gonna call him Legend Getter.
It's got to be Legend Getter, man. It's got to be Legend Getter. It's got to be, yeah, Legend Getter. I like that. He's a Detroit Mercy. He's a forward from there. Is it Peter Fuchs?
It's got to be, right? It's Fuchs. We're going to say Fuchs.
I mean, it's Fuchs. I don't know how they pronounce it. Guard out of Detroit Mercy. But if it's not Fuchs, we are going to have a lot of fun with this young man's name coming up. I guarantee, well, at least the broadcast crew will. Matt McCool is a forward from Marist. How about this one? Mazau Downing Riverside. Mose. Is it Mose? Mose Downing Riverside. I apologize. I butchered the name. Mose Downing Riverside. There's Luth M. Coulibaly.
Coulibaly.
Okay.
Coulibaly. Sorry, Coulibaly.
Is it Coulibaly?
I believe so, yes.
Out of Valpo. He's a forward out of Valpo. Moses Hips. I like that. That's
a good name. Solid name.
Guard out of Boise State. That's nice. Oh, man. Is it Great, his first name? Great Ozabor?
Great Ozabor.
Damn. That's
always
good.
Always naming your kid Great. Stuff like that.
Yeah. I love that. Cameron McNamee. I don't know how that's – why is that a cool name? Why is it on here? McNamee is not like – that's not really
they just
cool.
like McNamee. I don't know.
All right. Stoney Hadnot. I like that. Stoney Hadnot. Zyterius Mortal. Damn, that sounds like a superhero name.
Dude, that sounds like those Key and Peele.
Mortal.
That's the Key and Peele one right there. Zyterius Mortal is a Key and Peele.
Zyterius Mortal. He's is a guard /forward out of Texas Southern. All right, now here are the first team all-name team. So these are the best of the best names in D1 college men's basketball. This is good. Always right. Guard out of Rhode Island.
Solid.
That's damn good.
Man, how do you name your kid that and then tell them they're wrong?
You better do it before. Yeah, you got to do it before they get to a certain age. They know what it means because, always right. I like that. Oh, man. Come on. Really? His parents got a good sense of humor. The guard from North Carolina Central, Po Boy King. The boy spelled Boigh. Well done.
Yes.
I mean, that should also be a great NIL endorsement these days. All you got to do is find a place with nice Po Boys. Yeah. I'm the Po Boy King. Boom. Pay me to endorse your product. Good stuff. Is this real? Okay. Guard out of Kansas City. Is it Gob Gob?
It's Gob Gob.
Gob Gob? That simple?
I mean,
is his last name Gob?
I mean, that's like Bowl.
That's true. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Maybe that's like a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gob Gob. Okay. There you go. No, that is. That stands out. If he's good, everybody's gonna remember Gob Gob. And you got to come up with a cool nickname if your name is Gob Gob. Come on, somehow. This is well done. Out of Oregon. Hopefully they're good this year so we can hear a lot of this. Forward, Supreme Cook is his name. Supreme Cook. Well done. Well done.
We know what Supreme Cook does. Just put some sour cream on it. Because if we've learned anything from Taco Bell, Supreme means with sour cream.
So boom, NIL endorsement just happened. There you go.
Yeah,
there you go. And I hope hopefully he has taken enough pride in his name that he knows how to cook a little bit. Like actually literally cook. Just so he talking to the ladies and he can tell him his name, he'd be like, no, babies, no, literally, I'm a Supreme Cook. And he can go on social media, have a TikTok, can have a TikTok career on social media or his TikTok page where he actually cooks up stuff as Supreme Cook and he's cooking. Come on now. And as a basketball player, he's cooking.
You gotta let him cook, yeah.
Gotta let him cook. I mean, come on. Great job, parents. Great job there. How about this one? Center out of Liberty. Is it Caillou? Caillou. Yeah, Center out of Liberty. Pretty straightforward to the point like that. Oh, and this one's great. Utah Tech, guard/forward. Damn good. Tennessee Rainwater. Good stuff.
Dude, that dude's running from something.
Wow. Tennessee Rainwater. So parents are either really hippies or they're hippies or like, what do we see? What do we think the origin of this is for the parents?
Usual Suspects when he does the thing where he looks at the.
Oh yes,
I feel like that's what they were doing. Like, so what's the name on the birth certificate? Like, I see a map, like Tennessee, and then they look out the window. Rainwater. That's his name.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, when you got a name like that, though, it's a great in when you're trying to hit on chicks. It just helps you out. Because you just got to bring up your name somehow.
Yeah.
And then boom. And they'll assume you're joking. You'll be like, no, let me pull out my license. And my name is Tennessee Rainwater. Like,
and Rick Barnes, if you get more scholarships, you need to bring in Tennessee Rainwater because he'd be one of the few players that could have his full name on his jersey. Because the front would say Tennessee and the back would say Rainwater.
Good stuff there. There we go.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I totally agree with you on that one. And hopefully he's good. And you root for all these guys to be good because you want them to be in a tournament and then he'd be like Po' Boy King or Always Right or Supreme Cook. And then these guys turn to stars. So that's the whole point. If you're a parent and you name your kid this, you're hoping they're special. They're already special because they're already some of the best athletes in the country. But you want them to get on a big stage so people can acknowledge the name and the power of the name, whatever it may be. All right. Good stuff there, Patrick. Appreciate that. Okay. Can we have time for this real quick? Do we have time for this?
Go for it.
Because this is NBA related. NBA is already getting salacious. And I don't know why. Okay. So Drake had a beef with Kendrick Lamar. I'm sure people have heard about this. Drake and Kendrick Lamar had the beef, blah, blah, blah. Not like us. All right. They went back and forth. And Drake, he talked trash on Kendrick Lamar and how he didn't, show love to his hood. Compton is where Kendrick Lamar is from. So there are some people that believe, and I don't know if this is true, that DeMar DeRozan, who used to be a Toronto Raptor at one point in his career and is now a member of the Sacramento Kings, he's from Compton. And apparently Drake was at the game beefing with DeMar DeRozan. I don't know I don't know the history. I think the history may be linked to Kendrick Lamar, but I don't know. And he was at the game mean mugging him. Like he had court seats. It was in Toronto and he's there just mugging him and actually talking trash, like mouthing stuff to him and stuff like that. Don't know where this came from. So he actually, because Drake pretty much, I don't even know if he's a minority owner, but he acts like he's a minority owner of Toronto. And they show him a lot of love because he's one of the biggest rap stars in the world and they just like the brand association. So he gets a chance to go on the broadcast. He's on the broadcast, talking to the broadcast crew during the game. And can you play this, Patrick? He basically just takes a shot at DeMar DeRozan during the game. Here is Drake with the broadcast crew.
Treasure. Yes, if you ever put a DeRozan banner up, I'll go up there and pull it down myself. That's the answer to your question. Is that what you're going to ask?
No. I didn't mention DeRozan and Kyle.
Yeah.
He just randomly takes a shot at DeRozan and then takes another shot at him later. Basically we have the other, he calls him a goof, basically. I think he calls him in the other video. But he takes multiple, and the guys didn't set him up. They were talking about Vince Carter's jersey, actually.
Yeah.
They're talking about how nice, like the Vince Carter, like the retired jersey was and all that kind of stuff. And he just randomly took a shot at DeMar DeRozan. So DeMar DeRozan is asked about it because it's the NBA, which I love. The NBA is like, no, we're not wasting no time. We will ask you about this salacious story happening. So they asked him about Drake, and Drake saying that he's going to take the banner down if they put up a DeMar DeRozan banner, who, by the way, now plays for Sacramento, who was playing Toronto at the time. So he doesn't play for Toronto anymore. But apparently something went down between the two. So here's DeMar DeRozan when being asked about Drake's comments.
Drake, in tonight's broadcast, DeMar, in tonight's broadcast, Drake said, if you ever put up the Rosen banner up, I'll go up there and put it down myself. What's your reaction to that?
Well, he gonna have a long way to climb to take it down. So tell him good luck.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. So I don't know if it did say they were joking. It seems like they genuinely don't like each other. I don't know why.
I don't think DeRozan gives a crap. I think
he doesn't.
I think Drake is trying to stay relevant by doing whatever he can to keep the Kendrick. I don't think he wants that Kendrick Lamar beef to be over because it gave him so much notoriety and he lost it. So I think he wants that not to be. He wants another shot at it.
He wants a round two. He keeps talking about round two.
So he's like, let me go after you, and then maybe I'll get a round two with Kendrick, and then I can win that one. I think he's just trying to get in a fight with Kendrick, and this is how he's trying to do it. But like, dude, you can't go like DeMar DeRozan.
DeMar DeRozan and Kendrick close though.
Also, this is DeMar DeRozan and Sacramento. Like, this is end of the career DeMar DeRozan, not the one you're gonna be. This ain't. You're not going after Anthony Edwards or somebody who's like coming up to the prime of their career, and you're like, no, I'm gonna take shots at him, and he's a star. Like, he's in Sacramento now.
Yeah, it's like, dude, how relevant? This is not relevant at all.
I like DeMar DeRozan. I think they should put his numbers up in Toronto. He meant a lot to that franchise for a lot of years.
Do you think he'll get it? He'll get a jersey retired there?
Oh yeah, probably eventually.
Oh, I want to see. I can't wait till Drake responds to that.
At that point, he'll be friends with him again.
That's true. Drake does go back and forth.
Drake wears every team's jersey. We get that.
Yeah, and he makes up with it. But yeah, I was not aware that there was beef going on there, but apparently there is. But I think you're right. I think basically Drake wants round two, and Kendrick's kind of moving on. And Drake should move on too. Drake's mad because Drake hasn't won one of these big rap beef shit. He keeps losing them. He's the biggest rapper out there, arguably, but he keeps losing like the rap beef because he keeps getting into rap beefs with like natural lyricists. Like these guys were born lyricists. Like Kendrick Lamar was born great. Drake is awesome because Drake was a trained lyricist. He trained himself to be a lyricist. That's what makes him kind of cool. But you can't get into it with a natural lyricist, man. You're probably gonna lose that battle. And he's lost those battles, and I think.
Then Kendrick's doing the halftime show now too. So
he is, which some people now he's losing street cred because it's like, oh yeah, you're hanging out with Jay-Z and you're doing the halftime show because hip hop and the NFL aren't supposed to be aligned. You know what I mean, and that kind of thing. But I don't know. I'll say this is the one thing that Drake did. He screwed up. He assumed that people cared about facts more than they care about just salacious headlines. So his beef was built on I'm factually correct, and Kendrick is factually incorrect. Check the facts in his raps, and everybody's like, we don't care about facts. Have you checked our political discourse? We don't care about facts. We vote how we feel. All right. And Kendrick made everybody feel better, and then he won. And Drake kept talking about it, but his facts aren't correct. He kept listening like he's wrong here and wrong here and wrong here. I was like, we don't care about that, Drake. You overestimated how much we value facts. And honestly, like I said, our political discourse is a prime example of we don't care about facts anymore. No. We care about how the candidate makes us feel. That's what we care about. Yeah. Make us feel. That's why Biden had to get dropped because he didn't make people feel good. Like make us feel good. That's what we voted for. We don't care about policies and facts anymore. And that's what Drake screwed up. He was all about, hey man, I'm telling the truth. It's like, yeah, we don't care about that anymore. You got to just, make us feel good about following you, or make us feel good about, the whatever rap song you come up with. It's all about how you make the public feel about that particular beef, and that's why Kendrick won the beef. That's why he won it. All right. That way too much breakdown about Kendrick Lamar and Drake. But still, I don't know why Drake is still trying to keep it going, but I think he wants round two. All right. We come up for round 4 of the Rodcast. We'll get into 9 o'clock hour, and we'll talk about the Aggies and them going full on Aggie against South Carolina, losing by 24 points on the road. We'll get into that, and also all the other college football headlines from the weekend. We'll dive into all of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Low and Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Smooth Soul Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick, my co-host, does a great job with all the musically themed days of the week. But on a Smooth Soul Monday, he intends to soothe the tortured soul of sports fans out there who may have had themselves a really tough weekend. That includes Cowboys fans. But also he intends to help you out because you have to transition from a hopefully relaxing, fun-filled, stress-free weekend to a very stressful, hectic work week. And that can be pretty traumatic. It can lead to a case of the Mondays. He's trying to avoid that. So he tries to make it a smooth transition for you, and thus the purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday. There's also Texas basketball discussion to get to today. We've had a nice preview from my man Patrick about Texas basketball, which opens Texas men's basketball opens their season tonight. And the Patrick puts the big fat poll today. It's already up at the Horn ATX. Patrick, let the folks know what the topic is for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll today. Which player are you most excited to see debut for the Longhorns tonight? Trey Johnson has run away with it, 71% of the vote. No surprise there. That is the freshman coming in, lead player, top 5 prospect in this year's class that's coming to Texas. If he can be able to score at that high level, he will be so much fun to watch. Then Jordan Pope at 16% coming in from Oregon State. Another electric scorer. See if his defense, both those guys defensively, we'll see what they can do tonight as well. And then Tremont Mark and Arthur Kaluma both at 7%. Both going to be big parts of this team. Tremont Mark, people don't know. That guy's going to be, they're going to love watching that guy play basketball. Because I know basketball fan, like when you watch, you love a guy who plays really good defense and just gets down and dirty in there. And that is what he is going to do. He's going to be explosive at the rim as well. So I think Texas fans are going to be really excited to watch him play.
Nice. I think the Longhorn fans, a lot of excitement about Texas basketball this year because there's so many new faces. Seems like that'll be the case year after year. A lot of new faces and some upgrades, a lot of upgrades for this Texas basketball roster too. All right, so there you go. Topic for the big fat poll today. Thank you for that, Patrick. We appreciate it. This is breaking news, and looks like the NFL, there's some front offices that are already starting to make some of those tough decisions. We saw earlier today the Las Vegas Raiders. They ended up firing their OC, their O-line coach, and their quarterbacks coach. Well, now we have another move, and this one is of the head coaching variety. The Saints have fired Coach Dennis Allen. He's out. Man, that didn't take long at all. Allen went 18-24 in 2+ seasons in New Orleans, failing to make the playoffs twice. Looks like New Orleans is going to go in a different direction. And you know what? I will say this about New Orleans. They started out really good. And they started out really hot. They were one of the surprise stories in like the first 2 weeks of the season, and that flamed out really badly. And this is the reason why. I'll give you this stat. I was going to do it in what the stats, and I ran out of time. So the Saints were playing the Panthers this past weekend, and the Panthers are, I mean, you can make the argument the Panthers are the worst team in the NFL. Like that's easily. I mean, they're terrible. As a matter of fact, I saw JT Sanders though have a really good catch and run.
Yeah, that hurdle.
It hurdled over a guy,
nice.
Right? I got to go back and try to see his stats in that game. But anyway, Carolina beat New Orleans 23-22.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing for a lot of reasons. JT had a great game. He had 4 receptions for 87 yards.
Yeah,
Shout out
and
to
Jonathan
JT
Brooks,
Sanders.
I believe, is supposed to come back next week.
Ooh, okay. There you go. So things looking up for the Panthers. So Panthers beat the Saints. But how about this stat? The Saints outgained the Panthers by 150+ yards. By more than 150 yards. I'm not making that up. They ran for 150+ yards, and they won the turnover battle too, and still lost the game. Over the last 20 years, teams had gone 275-0 with that formula of outgaining their opponent by at least 150 yards, running for at least 150 yards, and winning the turnover battle. That formula of those 3 key elements in the last 20 years meant you were undefeated, 275-0. The Saints were the first loss in the last 20 years for a team who outgained their opponent by at least 150 yards, ran for 150 yards, and won the turnover battle. First loss in 20 years for a team that checked the boxes or met the criteria for all three of those elements.
And then did you see all the behind the scenes drama that came out after that, or when Chris Olave gets targeted basically and has
Michael
a concussion,
Thomas,
and Michael Thomas came out and just went off on Derek Carr. He's the problem and all that. And you're just like, dude, I don't first of all, Michael Thomas, you probably are not the one to talk.
What the hell? What is his status?
He's not on the team. Like, he's not in the NFL anymore.
That's what I'm saying. Is he still trying to play, or is he?
I don't know. He's not in the NFL anymore, right? I don't think anyone's going to take him until it's like, well, are you going to stay on the field? Because you had undisclosed injuries basically for the last 3 years of your 3-4 years of your career.
Yeah, and they would not. Yeah, it must have been really bad because we still don't know what the hell happened to Michael Thomas.
Yeah, it's either really bad or he just didn't want to play. He didn't want to play through the pain. Mm-hmm. Which it could have been a little of both. It could have been one of not one, and he could have been legitimately just unable to go produce at that level anymore. But yeah, he came out afterwards and so mad at Derek Carr. I was like, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody come that hard at him at Derek Carr. Like I get it, he's not the best quarterback, but
there's a history there. That seemed personal.
Yeah.
To put him on blast like that, that seems like that's something personal.
And I get you put him over the middle. But also receivers have to go over the middle, and it was an illegal hit. Like,
no, I'm like I said, it seems like he was waiting on an opportunity.
Yes,
to take some shots at Derek Carr, and he thought that was the perfect time to do it. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. I mean, I would say it's about Derek Carr. You realize Derek Carr? There's something about. I think Derek Carr's a good quarterback. Obviously, I mean, he's been in the league for a while. He's had some really good seasons, but Derek Carr, man, he's basically one of the biggest losers, if you will, in the NFL. And what I mean by that is like the most losses, like on his resume. Like his efforts and productivity doesn't translate to wins enough in the league. Like through 4 seasons, and I would say a lot of this on the organization. It's as a quarterback, you get all the girls, but you get all the grief, right? It's they probably give way too much credit to quarterbacks when they win, and they probably have they probably put way too much responsibility on when they lose, like both of those, right? But through 4 seasons, Derek Carr had the most losses as a starting quarterback through 4 seasons, through 5 seasons, through 6 seasons, 7 seasons, 8 seasons, 9 seasons, 10 seasons, and 11 seasons. Him and Archie Manning actually are tied with the most losses through 11 seasons. All right, him and Archie Manning are tied with 91.
Same's just killing it right there.
Yeah, it ain't all his fault or anything, but I'm just saying it doesn't translate to wins.
No.
Like his production on the field. So I think it's kind of unfortunately that's kind of the narrative of Derek Carr. Derek Carr. David Carr, actually, I take it back. David Carr and Derek Carr. I put it all on Derek Carr. It's both of them. Derek Carr has the most losses through 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 seasons. I take that back. And then David Carr has the most losses through 4, 5, and 6 seasons. So I take that back. It's the Carr brothers is what I should have done. And not just Derek Carr. It's both.
Yeah.
It's David and Derek. But David, we know why, because it's more the Texans. But Derek Carr, most losses through 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 seasons in the NFL. Just doesn't, like I said, whatever he does, it doesn't always just translate to wins. He doesn't have that ability to transform an organization.
No,
with his quarterback play. And I'm not, like I said, not all his fault, but some quarterbacks do. It's amazing how some can. Like Jaden Daniels, how he can. He kind of transform like everybody gets better because of their presence. You know what I mean? Everybody improves. I think CJ Stroud had some of that now. Now you could argue it's wearing off a little bit, but there's some quarterback. I mean, Tom Brady, of course, famously, he's got that.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers wants to be that for the Jets. He wants so badly to be that transformational leader at quarterback. Like, I come in, everything is different. And not every quarterback just has that presence. And it's clear that Derek Carr doesn't really have that presence. And I don't know what it is. It's a je ne sais quoi. It's that it quality, whatever it is. Like some guys do have it and others don't. And it's clear that Derek Carr, and I think you can develop it. I do. I think you can develop it. I can. Jared Goff is a prime example of a guy that may not have had it at one point, figured it out, got it now. Hell, him and Matt Stafford both. sometimes your environment is also a big part of it. Your compatibility with the organization.
No.
Matt Stafford couldn't do it with Detroit, but did it with the Rams and Sean McVay. And now Jared Goff, who couldn't do it with the Rams, is about to try to do it, or is coming damn close to doing it with Detroit.
No, I think
transforming a franchise.
The worst, vouching for Derek Carr at this point, the worst is that he's a Davante Adams guy, and we know Davante Adams knows how to pick him.
He's got a type.
Davante Adams got a type, which is bad leader.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And as Michael Thomas would say, maybe a bad teammate. Something must have happened between them. They must have had some kind of interaction.
No, I mean, I could imagine.
I know that
Derek Carr came in, and then Michael Thomas trying to make a comeback, and it wasn't working. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of anger that comes out of being a guy who's going to be a star in the NFL, and basically your career's over because you can't get on the field. I'm sure there's a lot of anger that's in that as well. But yeah, it seemed weird that he was like in the play that it was on, because he was doing it after Olave got hurt, but it was an illegal hit. So I get you're throwing over the middle, but you throw over the middle in the NFL. That's part of it.
Yeah, and honestly, he was one of the guys that was famous for going over the middle.
Yeah,
Michael Thomas, because he was so big and he was one of those big targets that could go over the middle. I'm with you. I said it sounds personal. But now I'm wondering, why did the Saints make the move now? Did they just want to be first in the quarterback search? The head coaching search, probably a quarterback search too. But first in the head coaching search, try to get their name out there. Because if I'm a top candidate, the Saints don't seem that appealing. They just don't seem like
this may be.
Right now.
We'll see. I don't know if maybe they're going to try and go more Kubiak and see if whatever they had in those first couple of games, if that works out, and maybe give him a run. Giving him a little bit more control. Yeah. Just to see that and be like, well, are you going to be the next guy, or are we going to go replace both of y'all?
Yeah, that wore off pretty quickly though. That schematic advantage
really quickly.
The NFL catches up to everybody, but they caught up to that in like 2 weeks. It's like 2 weeks. That was it. It was like, yeah, we got it. We figured it out. So no, you're right. Good point. I didn't think about that. Maybe they got somebody within the organization they want to vet, and the best way to vet them is to see if they can take over the interim role and maybe do something there. I think they need to get, because a lot of these guys are still left over from the Sean Payton regime.
Yeah.
Dennis Allen was too. I think they probably need to go to a different.
It might be that of like, we need to start clearing, but we don't want to do it at once. So we're just going to do it in the next part. I don't know what it'll be, but yeah, it seems weird to do it. But I mean, I guess this is kind of that point. It's a trade deadline. It's the point of the season of we might as well go forward or get out, and let's go get a draft pick. Let's go try and get that. Yeah. Let's go try and get a quarterback.
You buying or selling? That's basically what we at that point now at the NFL season. You buying or selling? And the Cowboys, I think the Cowboys are selling.
I mean, I think the Cowboys are going to do nothing, but they should be selling. But I think they're going to do nothing because your GM's Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones. Can we hear from Jerry? Because we had a clip from Jerry. I don't know how Jerry can still justify this stance. And like I said, it's not a lie if you believe it. The old George Costanza line. So maybe if you can lie to yourself well enough, then you'll start to believe it. Here's Jerry Jones when he's asked about where the Cowboys are now, 3-5. Dak hurt, CD's dealing with an injury. Prospects don't look great for the future. Here's Jerry Jones.
Really regret this for all of our Dallas Cowboy fans. I will tell you this, that I've been around. I've seen Michael Irvin tear up and cry when he couldn't lose anybody because he's just recovering from knee surgery. Yet his ass came back and led a team to 3 Super Bowls. I know you can be there if you're there. That room's full of guys that can get it done. I believe in them, coaches and all.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey,
I don't think he believes that at all.
Remember Michael Irvin? Remember when we were good? Remember?
Yeah, he's flashing back like 30 years ago now to remember that. Oh man, like I don't know what he obviously doesn't believe in the coach. He said coaches and all. I was like, coaches and all. You got a lame duck coach, don't even have a contract right now. So you definitely didn't believe in him. Otherwise, you'd have signed him to an extension. So you don't believe in the coach. So that's ridiculous. And to say you believe in these players, I guess you got to say that as the GM and the owner.
You don't. You can say whatever you want. You're Jerry Jones. It's never stopped you before, but now you're just trying to gaslight fans because you know how bad it is, and you don't want to spend the money. Like it's really at this point, it's come down to that reality for him that he realizes that people see what he does a lot more, and stuff he was able to get away with before he can't get away with the same way, and it's just not working right now. And it all kind of piled up, and people are coming after him, and so now he's just like every interview now is, well, I was crazy when I bought the team, and that worked out, and I did this when I did, 30 years ago, and 35 years ago, and 30 years ago. Jerry, that's the problem. It's 2024, man. The game has changed, and like you remember when there wasn't a salary cap, and now people have figured out how to circumnavigate the salary cap, and you're still acting like it's 2005 and you have to be very strict with the salary cap. That's not how it is anymore, and you're still acting like that.
Yeah. No, and now I wonder, who is going to be the head coach of the Cowboys going forward? Because it won't be Mike McCarthy. We all know that.
No.
Who takes the job because of there's a reputation among real ball coaches in the league, like ones who are respected throughout the league as the guys who are the best football coaches, that they don't want to coach for Jerry Jones. Yes, you may get paid good money, but you will be emasculated as a coach, and you will have no power. You won't get a chance to, have input on the roster. And of course, you'll always be micromanaged at almost every step. And so real ball coaches don't go to that. That was Bill Parcells' curse he left on Jerry Jones. That one of the last ball coaches was Bill Parcells in terms of coaching with the Cowboys, and he told the league, "No, man, that guy's a joke. You don't want to go there. Nope, you don't want to go there. Now, if you're a serious football coach, you don't go there. If you ain't got no other choice, you can go there, Mike McCarthy. But if you're a real ball coach with options, you don't want to coach for the Dallas Cowboys because it's a circus, and it's more style than substance. And so now, with that being said, it's always a challenge to go get a real football coach that can help you win games, one of substance. And do you go from college? Do you go where do you go here?
Bill Belichick? You got to remember,
Bill Belichick wants power though. He wants control.
Does. That's why I don't know. He went with Mike McCarthy. He was a few years out of coaching because he had to go get a guy who wanted to get back in the league that no one was calling.
Desperate. Yep.
And he went and got him, and he's not a bad coach, but he wasn't in the league because people thought the game passed him by. And Jerry Jones went and brought him back. But I mean, is it a Mike Vrabel that feels like he has no coaching opportunities left because his style's out? And they say,
he's a guy that doesn't he doesn't
I don't think
he doesn't mix words, and
I don't know.
Tells you how he thinks.
With Jerry,
yeah, that's why he fell out at Tennessee, was because he went off on his GM. Well, but two of them back. He went off on the first one and the guy they brought in after him. Ooh.
So I don't know but that's a guy that may take a job that wasn't perfect to get back into being a head coach without being a coordinator and stay coaching. That's a name you can see that's still young enough. Belichick, I think, is having enough fun doing TV that he may not take a really bad job like that, where he knows this is clearly going to be toxic and not work.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sully my reputation by coming in and basically having like 2 bad seasons and then it ending.
He couldn't figure out offense with the Patriots. You better make sure you got a plan for Belichick and offense. And right now for the Cowboys, that's one of their big issues. Well, they got a lot of issues, but they got to figure out offense too.
So I don't know that one. I'll tell you a name that's going to be in the conversation is Jason Garrett. It's going to be in the conversation. And that's crazy. Wild. That's crazy, but it's going to be in the conversation.
Man, if you're right about that, that's insanity. Like, talk about the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing again.
Who's a coach that had decent head coaching record, that is out of the league, but probably would want to get back into coaching, has no opportunities right now to do so, and knows how to deal with Jerry Jones.
Yeah, dealing with Jerry Jones is big, man.
And he always Jason. He didn't want to fire him. He didn't want to get rid of Zeke.
He didn't. Oh, the Zeke story.
I'm just telling you, that's an option of one that is a possibility. Now, I don't know if he'll fully go in. I don't know if they'll have Stephen Jones commit him before that happens. They'll put him in and try and pull power of attorney before he does that. But
man, yeah, no, it's a good question. I'm right now, that guess is as good as any I have. I have no idea who they'd bring in. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people because I don't think Jerry Jones is going to go for somebody who's not a proven commodity, right? I don't know if he's going to give an up and coming
No, and we talked about Ben Johnson would be, man, what a great guy to put with Dak Prescott.
That would be
what a great guy to put with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Man, you could do that. And then you find another defensive guy and, but he ain't going there. He turned down the Commanders because of that. They didn't want to go there.
He ain't going to the Cowboys. Not with that dysfunction. He'll have his choice of any of the major openings. He'll probably be able to get a young quarterback or maybe to draft his own quarterback.
Yeah.
He might want to go. Honestly, I don't know what Chicago is, but Eberflus saying, I don't know how long he's going to last. He might be waiting out a job like that. Who knows? He's got that kind of.
No, and I mean, at least if you go to New Orleans, you can say, all right, well, if they have a top 3 pick, I can get a quarterback. And then I got Chris Olave, I've got Kamara, I've got some weapons I can utilize, and we can build from there. So, like, even that, at least, you're kind of starting with something new, and we can figure it out. But, yeah, I don't know if that just doesn't feel like he would want to go to Dallas if he turned down the Commanders.
Yeah. No, I mean, could he offer Sark the job? Think Sark would leave Texas for the Cowboys?
I don't know.
No way. He said Texas, I mean, for him, in that situation, I think Sark would stay at Texas.
And he's not paying
I think
him more
Sark
than
one day may go.
Yeah, I don't think he's paying him more than Texas paying him anyway.
No. Well, he could if he wanted to. I mean, it's Jerry Jones, but I don't think he would. Texas would match anything I think they would offer anyway. I'm just throwing names out there. It ain't gonna be Lincoln. I mean, remember at one point Lincoln Riley was the hot commodity. I mean, CB sent us this. Lincoln Riley's got like a $90 million buyout.
Do those buyouts work the same in the NFL as they work in?
That I don't know. That's a great question.
I know that there's some gray area in that where the buyout too is if USC fires him, but the buyout that's for USC to fire him is $90 million. I don't think it's a buyout for another team to hire him.
That's
and then
point.
So there's a way if you mutually decide to part ways, that price could be dropped immensely. The reason you wouldn't hire Lincoln is because he knows, well, I can suck and I'll still make $90 million here. But if I leave that and then go to the Cowboys and coach for 3 seasons and make $7 million a year there, that's 21. And I gave away 90. Yeah. So that would be the main reason that Lincoln would not want to go is until that parachute's gone, why would I leave?
I just don't know what I really don't know what direction he's going to go after Mike McCarthy. It's going to be really interesting. I'm sure he's got a list of potential candidates right now.
I'm sure he's got a list, and there's at least one dead guy on it. At least one dead guy on it, like for sure,
or somebody near death, and it's like Jerry. No, he's bedridden right now. No, you can't.
Hey, so what about Jim Mora? Like really, Jim Mora?
No, Belichick is the one that I think is going to come up first. And foremost.
No, that's going to be entertained because Jerry loves the circus.
Yep.
So until Bill Belichick comes out and says I will not be the head coach of the Cowboys, then that will be rumored. But yeah, imagine Jerry Jones being like, it's that Bill Walsh guy. I've heard a lot about him.
Yeah. No, I'll say, yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. I'm saying, man, I think Jerry Jones, you're right. Because of the Jerry Jones likes these salacious headlines, there's going to be a lot of teams, a lot of names that'll be thrown out there. A lot of names are going to be thrown out there. How many of them are going to be serious? Serious contenders?
No, and there'll be people saying that.
So I was going to say Sark names may come up just because who knows? And I don't know who the agents are behind this thing. Because when a job like the Cowboys comes open, it is kind of like the Longhorn job where it'll get you a raise even if you're not taking the job.
Yes.
Right? Because if they're considering you, they're going to pay top dollar. So I wonder if there'll be a lot of names mentioned just because of that alone.
Oh, no. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. I'm sure that they'll bring up I can trade for Sean Payton too will be a name just because the ties
That's
there.
True.
So, but I mean, if he wins in Denver, then why would he want to start over again if he's actually got Bo Nix to play with the way he wants him to? So, I don't know. But yeah, it'll be Jerry will love the show, and you got to re-sign Michael Parsons too. So
yep, no doubt about that. All right, before we get to the break, let's hit the horn headlines. I don't think we've hit them yet early. We've been talking and breaking down some of the news, and we actually haven't hit the news. So let's get educated, updated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the horn headlines.
All right, your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs beat the Timberwolves on Saturday night, 113-103. 5 Spurs scored in double digits, and Chris Paul racked up 13 assists. The Rockets came back from down 31 to force overtime against the Warriors, but still lost 127-121, with Tari Eason leading the way off the bench with 27 points. And the Mavericks took down the Magic 108-85, holding Orlando to 33% shooting for the game. Tonight, Spurs face the Clippers. The Rockets take on the Knicks, and Mavericks are up against the Pacers. In college football, 7 top 25 teams took a loss on Saturday, with most notably Ohio State beating Penn State 20-13. Louisville knocking off Clemson 33-21, and South Carolina giving Texas A&M their first loss in conference play with a 45-20 win. Texas moves up to 5 in this week's poll. And the NFL, the Cowboys took a hard loss to the Falcons 27-21 with both Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb being injured in the game. Also around the league, the Lions got a 24-14 win over the Packers, and Vikings got back on track with a 21-13 victory over Joe Flacco and the Colts. Tonight, the Buccaneers head to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. And in college basketball, Texas begins their season tonight as a number 19 team in the country, taking on Ohio State in Las Vegas for the Hall of Fame series. 18 top 25 teams are in action tonight, kicking off the season with number 8 Baylor against number 6 Gonzaga headlining the night. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. I appreciate those. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back and dive into the Aggies and their disappointing win, disappointing loss, I should say, at South Carolina. We'll dive into that a little bit and look at some of the other college football headlines from the weekend and look ahead, actually, to tonight. Texas basketball in action versus Ohio State. We'll talk about that matchup a little bit more as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. Oh man, I want to get to we'll get to the ending game a little bit. I just saw the fact about Dennis Allen, and I didn't even realize this, but it is true. Dennis Allen, who's been fired as the head coach of the Saints, he's the first coach in the Super Bowl era to be fired by two teams while having the same starting quarterback in both places. I didn't even realize. I forgot. I mean, I didn't even think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? So it's his fault. I mean, fool me once, right? I mean, fool me once, that's shame on me. Fool me twice, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. And like I said, nothing wrong with Derek Carr as a quarterback. Derek Carr is a perfectly fine quarterback. He is. There's no doubt about it. But as a coach, you do have to recognize that there are some quarterbacks who do have a transformational quality about them. And I don't think Derek Carr has ever had that as a quarterback. And yet he tried to, once again, he tried to go with Derek Carr again when he got his head coaching job and I thought magic was going to happen. And it did for the first 2 weeks. It was that they were the feel good story of the NFL for those first 2 weeks. And then reality set in. So, I mean, he rode with Derek Carr for the second time. I mean, he believed in Derek Carr. If not, he wouldn't have staked his head coaching career pretty much on that quarterback. Wow. Man, he's basically gotten fired mid-season at both jobs. And some would say both times because of Derek Carr. Yeah. Your job security as a head coach is linked inevitably to your quarterback. It just is. If your quarterback's not playing well, or if you have job security issues, or you're on the hot seat, most of the time you can just go look directly at the quarterback and go, well, look, his quarterback's not playing well, or he picked the wrong quarterback. And for Dennis Allen, I don't know if he picked the wrong quarterback, but he didn't pick the right one. That's pretty clear. His 9, he has if you go look at Dennis Allen, he has a record of 9-18-1 against the spread. His career as a favorite. And that is the worst mark of any head coach in the last 30 years as a favorite. He has coached 5 seasons in the NFL. His teams are 0-5, based on their 0-5 to their preseason win total. So, and on their way to being 0-6 to their preseason win total.
Yeah.
So his teams never meet expectations.
I feel like the weirdest part though is like they feel like they were oddly loyal to him, of keeping him, whereas last 2 seasons you were kind of thought, well, maybe he'd get replaced, and after Sean Payton left, he was in there, but maybe it never felt like he was really who anybody wanted as a head coach, but he just kind of was there.
Yeah.
And every year they backed him, and so to get fired this early in the season is more what's surprising. Is they just seemed oddly loyal to him to a point, and then this season, I guess whatever happened, where maybe I don't know if other people resonated with what Michael Thomas said, or something else, where they were just like, look, we can't really ditch Derek Carr, but that's your guy.
Yeah.
And you went that way. You're gonna have to lie in that bed, and you're not winning. So it's time.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's the first head coach firing so far. It won't be the last, of course, but I don't think it's been announced who the interim is. I haven't seen that yet, so I have to go check and see if they've announced who the interim is going to be. I hadn't seen that from Adam Schefter yet, but I'll try to find that and get that to you guys before the show's done. Okay, real quick, the Aggies. 44-20 loss at South Carolina. I picked the Aggies, and I always said every time I pick the Aggies, it blows up in my face. So now I think I'm doing it ironically, subconsciously picking the Aggies so they can lose. But I did pick the Aggies. I thought that would be a bad matchup for South Carolina because South Carolina's offensive line has not been great, and they didn't really need the offensive line from a pass protection standpoint. They ran the rock. Hell, Lenora Sellers, the quarterback, had over 100 yards rushing himself, had 15 rushes, over 100. He forced 12 missed tackles as a dual threat runner against the Aggie defense. And so between him and his, kind of elite dual threat ability, he caused all types of problems for that A&M front. And then South Carolina's front, specifically their defensive line, man, they just dominated the Aggies' offensive line. They really did. And they had over a 47% pass rush win rate. Marcel Reed was pressured on half of his dropbacks in that game by the South Carolina defensive line. Man, Dylan Stewart is just a freak for them, that freshman edge rusher for them. He was a beast, and A&M couldn't run the ball. And it's clear that A&M can't run the ball. And this is good for Texas because Texas has a really good, defense, great defense, one of the best in the country. And I think they can stop the Aggie running game. Now, it didn't help that Le'Veon Moss, who has been a beast for them the last couple of games, he got hurt. He only played like 4 snaps, ended up getting 2 touches, and was out of that game. And Marcel Reed, without the complement of an elite runner in the backfield with him, hell, they only averaged 0.6 yards before contact. And that was before I mean, the South Carolina defensive line, I mean, they were making plays, wreaking havoc in the backfield. So they got no push up front. They had 168 rushing yards, but they weren't impactful rushing yards. And they averaged a little over 4 yards per carry, but a lot of negative plays by that South Carolina defense, forcing them into 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations. And Marcel Reed, like I just said, he was under pressure over half of his dropbacks. He was under duress. And he's just not a good pocket passer right now because he's such a young quarterback. If you can take away or you can somewhat corral him as a runner and force him into passing situations, Texas will be just fine going up against Marcel Reed. He can cause you problems, not saying he won't, but South Carolina, now they have some of the best D linemen and best edge defenders in college football. But I think Texas can replicate some of what South Carolina did defensively against A&M. Now it'll be a bit different monster because A&M will be at home. This time they were on the road at South Carolina, and who knows how healthy Le'Veon Moss will be. They really missed him in the run game. He's definitely a difference maker for him. But that was a nice game plan by South Carolina. Now they did have the personnel to execute it, but a really good game plan by them. And I think Texas has the pieces to be able to do some of the same things, to come up, execute some of the same defensive strategies that South Carolina did against A&M. So I like that matchup, but I will say the Texas offense going up against that A&M defense, that could, even though, I mean, they ran a lot on them, but they had a running quarterback, that is something I'm still a little concerned about going into that matchup. I think this weekend we'll actually learn a lot about the adjustments that Texas made to a lot of the pressure packages that were giving them problems. The cornerback or boundary cornerback or slot cornerback blitz, the A-gap blitzes, the delayed blitzes. I'm sure they worked on all 3 of those issues that were giving them problems heading into this bye week. And if they didn't, well, Florida would be foolish not to deploy some of those concepts in the game and to blitz Quinn Ewers at a high rate and try to simulate some of the things that Vanderbilt did on the road. Vanderbilt did at home when Texas had to go on the road to play them. All right, we come back. We'll wrap it up and put it in the oven. We'll
real
play
quick.
the
interim head coach, Darren Rizzi, special teams coordinator, assistant head coach, is taking over as the interim head coach. He's been with the Saints since 2019 when he came as special teams coordinator. When Allen took over as head coach, he was named assistant head coach and special teams coordinator. So he will be taking over as the interim head coach.
Oh, good stuff there. Yeah, he has
a little head coach experience in college for Rhode Island, I believe. So not a NFL head coach experience, but at least some in college, and that'll be who is interim right now.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to transition from the Sean Payton model.
Yes,
they basically, because Dennis Allen was still kind of the Sean, and they were still trying to keep around a lot of those pieces. I think they're not just trying to move on from it, which is probably a wise move. Now that you don't have Sean Payton there to run the show, what's the point? It's trying to execute his vision for that team. All right, we come back. We'll wrap it up, put it in the oven, and we'll let you know what's coming up obviously later on, but we'll get into who said that. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, we have to identify and recall who said that. We'll play that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. Somebody tell me the horn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth Monday edition of the Rodcast, thanks to the efforts and the creativity of my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis. So we appreciate him and the smooth Monday tracks. Also, we appreciate him coming up with the topics for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. The topic for the big fat poll of the day, Patrick came up with pretty simple. He's excited about the Texas basketball season opening up tonight for the men. Which player are you most excited to see debut for the Longhorns tonight? And right now, the leader among the big time lead among those who surveyed, 73% of you say you're most excited to see Trey Johnson, the young phenom, play tonight versus Ohio State, and Jordan Pope second with 15% of the vote. All right, time to play Who Said That? That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that.
We both go to Nike. They signed Michael and they signed me. And Michael gave me some great advice one time. He says, hey, man, why you need all that money? I said, dude, what you talking about? He says, I was looking at your contract. You're making about $3 million. Tell Nike you want $1 million and you want the rest in stock options. And I said, thank you, Michael. Okay, I'll run it by my guys. He says, that's a good idea if they're going to be great. I says, this dude's the greatest basketball player I've ever seen. Let's do it. Or just do it. I actually made probably 10 times the amount of money, and I'm still with Nike to this day.
Wow. That was Charles Barkley saying the advice of Michael Jordan to take the stock options over the compensation straight up might have made him $30 million instead of the $3 million that he would have made if he just taken the compensation.
Good call right there.
Damn, man, that's thinking like a mogul. And that's why I know him and MJ had beef at one time. It's like, I would always forgive MJ. Hey, man, you made me $30 million. We good.
No, they have beef because they're both competitors, but Michael hates everybody. So
that's true. If you're competing against him, he hates you at that time.
Personal.
No doubt. He takes everything personal. All right. Thank you, Patrick. We appreciate you, brother, and everything you do. Thank you guys out there for joining us. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. Talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Join us tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Until then, hook 'em and peace.